CMJ's Epic Quest. 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 CMJ's Epic Quest.
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am J Rule, aka Justin. Joining alongside me is
Derek Cronus, Derek, and how are you doing today, Mr. Hiccups?
I'm all right. Oh, fuck you. Wow. Kitty. Angry kitties. Oh,
they don't like your hiccups.
No, they must not. I don't even know where the hiccups came from. I guess we'll see what happens at the end of the episode. If I still have them, then it'll be what it's going to be.
Well, I hope they don't go that long for you.
Sometimes my hiccups are very persistent. I don't know why.
Would you like me to take our Silverstones piece here in this case, since you're fighting some hiccups?
Yeah, sure. Might as well.
All right, I'll roll through that and then into our patrons. So today, before we get started, we'd like to take a moment and to thank and recognize Kevin and Silverstone's Books. Make sure to check out his website, silverstonesbooks.com, or better yet, if you are near Nebraska, take a trip, check out his store, see what it's about, and check out the other small shops near him. He's got a large number of signed books, different genres, fantasy, sci-fi, horror books, comic books, all types of stuff. A lot of them indie authors. So help us, help them in supporting self-published authors. Also, Kevin has been good enough to give us a promo code that works at least on his website for 10% off your next order. That code is DJ Quest. So check out the website, pick up a book, and save a little cash. And if you buy a book, if you use that code, tell us. I would love to hear, and we'll shout it out on the show. We'll probably tweet it out. It's not a lot, but it's something little, and I have fun doing it, and I'd like to see what people got. So, yeah, it's good all around. Our patrons, in the order of subscription, we have Jan the Picker, Luciana Etrigan, Ryan the Topological, Damien the Rock of Faces, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, and Aaron Mott Irregular. Thank you one and all. I've been trying to make more of an effort to be more active in our Patreon app, the little chat there. Just, like I consider you guys all our friends. So, just to check in and see what's going on and what you guys are up to, that type of thing. So I'm saying perfect, but like I said, trying to make more of an effort to be a little bit more present there.
I think they're gone.
Wow, perfect.
Yeah, I just usually what works for me is like holding my breath for an obnoxious amount of time, and then usually they go away if I just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I'm okay. So
Sweet.
I'll give you a little break here. I'll read the epigraph.
Before you do that, something we started, I feel like it's been like, 10 days since we recorded? Something like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you again, besides Memories of Ice, what are you reading? Are you still on the same Redwall book? Did you finish that up, or where are you at?
I finished it up, and I am now on the Redwall book Doomite. So this is the third to last. So
definitely did not make it that far.
Yeah. So I'm excited. It's actually pretty dark. in these first few chapters that I've read. So I'm kind of liking the way this is going.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Something that might interest you then, that is, I guess, Redwall adjacent, but there is an indie author. He's got 2 books out right now. His name's John Palladino.
I feel like I've heard of that.
The first book is The Trials of Ashmount, and the second book is The Buzzard's Bowl. He's working on the third book, and I think originally he said it was going to be a 4-book series, but recently on Twitter he said that the third might be the end of the series. Partially, I think he said he's felt like he's lived in that world long enough, but he wants to do like a grimdark Redwall series.
You know, it's funny because I was thinking about that the other day. How cool would it be to take the elements of Malazan and apply it to Redwall, and like how fucked up that would be?
I would definitely read it.
Maybe I'll have to reach out to him, be like, hey, if you want me to draw some pictures of like shit getting decapitated, like let me know.
I might be down for that. Yeah, I mean, aside from like I would want to read a grimdark Redwall, it makes me want to read Redwall. Since I never finished all of them, I read probably at least half of them, I would think. But
where did you leave off?
I don't even remember the last one that I read. I'd have to I think The Legend of Luke was the last one I read, and I'm not even sure if I finished it.
Oh man, so you and I stopped at the same spot. I finished Legend of Luke, and then I think he was coming out with or working on Lord Brocktree, but it was going to be a few years. So
I thought Lord Brocktree. I definitely read that one.
Oh, Lord Brocktree is after Legends of Luke or Legend of Luke.
Really? Are you sure? I thought Legend of, or Lord Brocktree. I thought that one was like fairly early on. Maybe I'm wrong.
Chronologically, but publication order, no.
Just some other random like bullshit. I know we got a long episode ahead of us here. I just wanted to bring up real quick. I don't scroll through Reddit too often, but I posted on the Dragonlance subreddit because I was looking for like something to help with like the order of the books. So like I counted the Dragonlance books that I have. I have 66 of them, but there's like fucking 200 of them. And so somebody gave me a link to a 2-hour-long video of like the Dragonlance like books and shit. So I watched that the other day before I went to work and like organized my Dragonlance books. But then I was scrolling through and like there's a Minnesota subreddit. And so I was looking at that and somebody posted a picture of like, you know, one of those big fucking hairy centipede things.
Yeah.
So this person must not be from Minnesota originally, but they posted this picture and they're like, dude, what the hell is that thing? And so like I was looking through the comments and stuff on it. And somebody's like, just turn a dehumidifier on your basement. They like to come in warm, moist things. And the comment right below that, somebody's like, yeah, dude, me too. So then the next comment below that was like, the subreddit is just on fire today, but it made me chuckle.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
The internet just totally undefeated.
Yeah. No one will ever be able to conquer the internet.
No, there's just too many quick-witted people, and it's unbelievable sometimes, but it was definitely funny, and I just wanted to share that nonsense with you.
Fair. What are you reading?
I'm about to start this alien book. I don't know if I've got it centered, but it's Into Charybdis or Charybdis. I'm not sure the way to say it. I finished the other trilogy I was reading, and this particular book is a sequel to an alien book that I had already read, and then I'm reading The Traitors We Are. I'm probably a third of the way into that, a little over 100 pages in, and that's written by Mike Roberti, who said he would talk to me once I finish it. So as I've been reading the book, I'll make little tweets up and send those out like as I'm reading a chapter and stuff, and he like responds to pretty much all of them. So it's been pretty fun.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I got going on.
All right. Well, should we read the chapter epigraph here?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, your hiccups, they seem to have subsided here. Why don't you take it away, sir?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll come back though. But anyway, we'll just work with what we got. Yeah, so chapter 18 here from Malazan's Memories of Ice. The epigraph here goes, the birth of the Barghast gods rang like a hammer on the anvil of the Pantheon. Primordial in their aspect, these ascended spirits emerged from the hold of the beast, that most ancient realm from the long-lost Elder Deck. possessors of secrets and mysteries born in the bestial shadow of humanity. Theirs was a power wreathed in antiquity. Indeed, the other gods must have felt the tremor of their rising, rearing their heads in alarm and consternation. One of their own, after all, had just been abandoned in the mortal realm, whilst a first hero assumed the warrior mantle in his place. More, the fallen one had returned to the game in dire malice, corrupting the Warrens to announce his deadly desire for vengeance and, it must be said in clear-eyed retrospect, domination. Burn's sleep was fevered, human civilization floundered in countless lands, drowning in the mire of spilled blood. These were dark ties. Was that meant to be times? These were dark times? Oh, well, these were dark times, and it was a darkness that seemed made for the dawn of the Barghast gods. In the wake of dreams, Imogen Calibant the Younger.
I was just going to look in the book here real quick. Yeah, I just copied and pasted that from like the wiki or something like that. Yes, it was supposed to be times. So good catch there.
Well, see, this is why you don't copy and paste from the Malazan wiki.
Well, what did you say? There was like 15,000 words we typed in this thing. I wanted to save a couple minutes.
Yeah, it ended up being like 12,500 or something like that.
Yeah, we typed up a short story from a chapter here.
I will say that I'm actually kind of surprised at myself. I feel like I've gotten really good at just not summarizing everything, but really just the important parts. Even though I had some longer sections, I managed to keep them under a page. So, yeah.
I think it's definitely a skill that like we've both been developing like over time as we've been doing this, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm sure, like, you know, if you and I were to summarize the same section, they're probably going to be different just because we might have different opinions on what's worth being left out and what's not.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I'm ready to get this started.
Yeah. What, we got like 18 sections here in this chapter. This was like 60 pages. So, I mean, yeah, all things considered here, we did this fairly fast. So, but we got a little bit to get through here. So,
right. And more importantly, when we're done, we can move on and find out what happened.
Yeah. All right. Start us off here. Quickben's eyes opened as Talamandus cocked his head. Speaking, he said, "Awake. Yes, a mind once more sound." Quickben told him for a moment he thought he was reliving a particularly unpleasant nightmare. Talamandus said with all the ravings he had done in his sleep, he had been through a number of nightmares. Quickben questioned this, and Talamandus said he had been listening as well, and he knows that Quickben knows the cause of the sleeping goddess's sickness, and that he would put himself in the path of the crippled god, matching his wits, and hell, maybe even his power, and defeat what he seeks. Quickben sighed. Looking around, he asked for the rest of his clothes. Tally said he did not mock him. He was impressed by him. A common soldier serving a malevolent and spiteful empress who sits on a blood-stained throne ruling an empire of murderers. Quickben cut him off there, and Tally could only laugh, saying it had always been this way. Quickben said Tally had lost him and asked how long he had been out. Tally said, long enough. The city had been retaken, they had the bones of their gods, and the Panions were being driven to Brood and his Malazan kin. Quickben had missed most of the fun, but this story wasn't done yet. Quickben said that would have been fun to see, but he was lacking his magic. Tally asked how he would best the crippled god if he was unable to use the powers he possessed. Quickben said he would think of something, but he bet the puppet had an answer for him. Quickben wanted to hear it. The stick snare said his gods were awoken, and he, or Quickben, has a worthy endeavor to gain their attention. Sacrifices must be made. For his cause, into the Warrens, which was a necessary step, he would need armor to protect him from the crippled god's poisons. Quickben said if they had made him a cloak, just spit it out already. Tally said it wasn't like that. His very flesh needed to be protected from the powers of the crippled god. Quickben said this was impossible. Tally knew this and said, "Twig and twine do not sicken. A soul that has known death cannot be fevered. He has vast ancient sorceries protecting him." Quickben said he had once been ripped from his barrow. Tally said that was by some rotten necromancers, and his gods have dealt with that. Tally said he would accompany him into the Warrens. He would be his shield. Use him, and take him where he, or Quickben, will. His gods have put their trust in him. Quickben asked why, and the little stick man said because they like him. Quickben wondered what the hell he had been talking about while he slept. Tally said he didn't know why his gods trusted him, only that they do. It was not up to him to question. While in his fevered state, he revealed how his mind worked, but Tally could not understand everything. He thought perhaps his god saw a match for the crippled god in him. Quickben said that was the plan, but he was unsure on how to move forward at this point without his warrens. He had a question. Someone else is opposing the fallen one. Did he know who or what it might be? Tally only shrugged and said the elder gods and the Barghast gods noted their actions have been reactionary. It was a fighting withdrawal, as they couldn't change the future, only prepare for it. Quickben said that was fatalistic of them, and Talamanda said that was their fatal flaw, and this wasn't really even their fight, except for maybe Cruel. What did Quickben know of him? Quickben knew he made the warrens, and anyone who uses them swim in his immortal blood. This surprised Tally and said, no one knows all that. How could he? Quickben said Cruel was in even worse shape than the crippled god, so if he, Quickben, felt helpless, imagine how he, Cruel, must feel. On top of that, the last of the remaining elder gods have been living under a slew of nasty curses. So it makes sense they feel a little fatalistic. Tally called him a bastard and told him to spill it. Quickben said the Barghast gods were not ready to go at it alone. Not by throwing all their weight behind him. They're still practically babes in the woods. The elder gods have tried to go it alone, and they've been on the defensive for a long time. And that didn't work, so now they're looking for allies. So who was it fashioning him, Talamandus, into something that could shield him in the warrens? Quickben figured Hood was involved. His own Barghast gods probably Fenner also, or Treach, or whoever rules that roost for now. He figured the sleeping goddess as well, so he must be all ready to go. But where is the question? That's where he, or Quickben, comes in. Quickben asked how he was doing so far. Tally said they were relying on him. Quickben asked for what? Tally said for whatever it was he was planning to do, and it goddamn better work. Quickben only grinned but said nothing and turned to leave the tent. Tally scrambled after him. The Barghast camp sprawled out all around him, and he noticed two different tribes. Quickben asked where his bridge burners were at. Tally said first into Capustan and probably still at the Thrall. They only fought at the North Gate, and none were injured. Quickben said there must not have been much dueling taking place. Tally said their gods had spoken to their shaman and chastised them, and it appears they are not done with the Panions or this war. Quickben asked if they would be marching south then. Tally said yes. They must sever the hand holding the sword. Quickben said they needed to talk to his allies in the west. Should he attempt to use a warren? Tally said he was ready.
I thought this was a really cool opening to the chapter. You just kind of get this vibe that like Talamandus is just sitting here watching Quickben sleep. A little creepy.
Yeah. I don't remember if we talked about this before, but like I've just kind of imagined Talamandus as like this little Groot like character, but that obviously like can say more than his name.
Right.
Like he's a mix between that and just like some crazy mad scientist or something. I don't know.
He's definitely an interesting character, and while I can't quite sense everything about him, like I will say that I am enjoying him so far.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he's like stuck around this long and been like relevant, because I didn't really expect that, and obviously he's going to be kind of important at least for a little bit here going forward. So
right. Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, it makes sense, right? His body is essentially made out of sticks, right? So, I mean, how can that get sick inside of the warren, you know? And it makes me wonder, is this something that they were like, hey, we should just try because that logically makes sense? Or is this something they've known about for a long time?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe they had like some intuition that it might work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see what goes on there, but I'm definitely interested in what it is that Talamandus is providing for Quickben, and that is essentially his shield. But I know that Quickben is definitely powerful enough to probably combat the crippled god, but I don't think that he is the only one who can do it. You know what I mean? And how are they going to shield other major players from the poison? You know, are they just going to rip a bunch of stick snares up from the Barghast, and each of them has their own like little stick snare companion?
I kind of feel like it's probably just going to be Quick Ben. Like, there's not going to be anybody else doing the same thing that he does. I know I remember talking about this with Nate and Matt about how, like, Quick Ben is kind of cocky. And I never really got that sense a whole lot until this chapter. Like, now I'm like, okay, like, he's definitely cocky. And I know they pointed out some things, you know, where, you know, he's being cocky and stuff, but like it really just drove home this chapter. I mean, the guy, what does he have, like 12, 13 warrants he can drop on? Like, that's, I don't think many people can do that. Or maybe he's the only one that can. So yeah, I don't know. I think Talamandus and Quick Ben are kind of it on this side of things for what they're doing. I don't know that they're going to have any backup per se.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, I'm definitely not in the short term, but just in the long term, you know?
Sure.
But yeah, I guess we can go into what you have commented on this section. So
No, you had some good points there, talking points. One here to start. So
okay.
Again, it's always kind of fun to try and like remember what I was thinking when I was writing this stuff. But so my talking point, Talamandus only shrugged and said, the elder gods, the Barghast gods noted that their actions have been reactionary. It was a fighting withdrawal, as they couldn't change the future, only prepare for it. So I was thinking that when I first read it, I thought it was saying that the Barghast were preparing for a fight. And I guess when I was typing up the summary, I must have felt differently. But now, as I'm like rereading it and reading it out loud, I'm like going back what I wrote here, I think, because I didn't think that was the case. Or I thought the Barghast were preparing for a fight, and then I reread it and wasn't so sure. And now I guess I feel like maybe it is talking about the Barghast again. I don't know what you think.
I mean, when I read this section, I feel like Talamandus and the Barghast gods are mainly just stating that the elder gods' actions have been reactionary because they can't change the future, just prepare for it, which kind of makes sense because it seems like the elder gods are trying to prepare for the future. Like this whole thing seems like very preparatory. I don't know if that's a word, but yeah, it just seems like they're all preparing for something big. You know, I mean, what we know of Cruel so far, and even Night Chill, right? In the last chapter with Captain Paran and their conversation with inside of his head, you know, it seems like at this moment in time, they are definitely reacting to the Crippled God, just trying to prepare for whatever it is that they're preparing for.
I think I was thinking, like the Barghast, I must have thought the Barghast being prepared to fight the Panions, because we were kind of told, like, oh, like they don't really give a shit about that. They just want to get the bones of their gods and then, peace out. But now, I mean, later on in this chapter, we find out like that's not the case, but
it very well could mean exactly that then. I mean, I guess it works in both ways, right? I mean, the Barghast gods are definitely in the game, right?
Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting how I just was, I mean, even till now, I'm still flip-flopping back and forth on what I was thinking here.
Yeah, that's what it does to you. It unfortunately was such a long chapter that I didn't get an opportunity to read it again. So I read it once and then I summarized it. So, but like I read your sections, like when I summarize, I read your sections and then I summarize mine and then I read yours and then I summarize mine. So like I still get the full picture, but like it's still pretty segmented, I don't get that like third chance to go through and read it all together with what I came up with and the visual canon in my head. One thing that I loved in this section is it kind of confirms the whole Cruel, right? And them swimming through their blood or whatever, because they talk about that, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Talamandus was surprised that, like, oh, how do you know this information? Like, nobody knows that, but, like, us.
Yeah. I don't feel as crazy as I did all those chapters ago where I kind of put two and two together. So I'll call that a win. I'll call it a win, which, as an artist, right? Like, I've studied human anatomy and it makes sense to me. So I can kind of visualize how at least the beginning of this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
I feel like the other little tidbits of information are information that we already kind of at least predicted or imagined. Like we definitely know that the Panions are not done. There's going to be more that is going to happen.
Yeah, I was still curious as to how that's all going to go down still.
Yeah, I am too. But I don't know if I have anything else to say for that chapter. I enjoy Quick Ben and Talamandus's like
A little
sincerity and also their banter.
Yeah, I'm ready to for you to take your first section here.
All right. 2 leagues west of Capustan on a broad slope, the Malazan heavy infantry advanced on the Panions. Marines with crossbows ran ahead, firing quarrels into the line of Bechtellites. On a hill's crest, Whiskey Jack, with aides and messengers at his side, watched the battle take place. Whiskey Jack had drawn the Septarch archers to attack his heavy infantry, which gave Dujek's heavy cavalry enough time to flank the archers. Had the Panion archers been disciplined and were under command of competent commanders, then they would have had time to wheel around to fire 3 volleys of arrow fire to perhaps beat Dujek's attempt at flanking. Instead, the Panion archers looked confused at the horse warriors closing in on them and attempted to flee, but they were chased down and slaughtered. Now that the archers were dealt with, Whiskey Jack focused his attention on the line of Bechtellites. The Marines, or crossbowmen, made their way to the edges of the advancing heavy infantry, continuing to fire their crossbows at the edges of the Bechtelite line. 4,000 armored and shield-bearing veterans closed in on the line of Bechtellites. Javelins cut into the Bechtelite line, and the line crumbled. The heavy infantry reformed into individual square wedges that each drove their way into the Panion ranks. These details before Whiskey Jack were precise to the Malazan doctrine of battles, as was devised by Decim Ultor. This tactic worked so well that it left the Panions uncertain as to what to do, as this tactic cut off communication and broke lines of sight to other soldiers, thus losing momentum and delayed a retreat, which often was fatal. The other option for the Panions was simply to fight, but that would take discipline and adaptability, which the Panions did not have. Within moments, the division was shattered, and entire companies of Panions were throwing their weapons down at the surrounding Malazans. Whiskey Jack knew that the battle was done. A messenger rode up to Whiskey Jack and said that he had a report from Brood. The messenger explains that the Igris, Bargast, and the Rivi have broken Seer Domen and Erdomen. The Tistiande destroyed the Cadre Mage active in the engagement, and that Brood owns the south flank. The messenger also conveys that Kulpath has been killed, and they have purloined the standard. Whiskey Jack says that this was good and told the messenger to report back to Brood, that he has defeated the companies of Bechtellites, Scalandi, and Desandi. Tell the warlord that there were 2,000 Tenascauri to the east, and that he and Dujek agree that slaughtering them would not sit well with them. The messenger saluted and then left. A warren opened in front of him, and Corlat stepped out. She tells him that he is needed in Dujek's command tent. Whiskey Jack gets down from his horse and tells Captain Barak that he's in charge. He steps into Corlat's warren, and they were gone.
I think it was 200,000 Tenascauri.
Oh, did I mistype that? Sorry.
I mean,
oh yeah,
in any case, yeah, it's just like basically like all of them. Like they're all just hanging around.
But I mean, didn't you say there was almost? Well, no, there was 300,000 when they first attacked Capustan, right? Wasn't it like near those numbers?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it seemed like whatever report of number we got was always kind of like changing, because it's always in somebody's like estimation.
Yeah.
So, but obviously, yeah, like they lost a bunch of them. So I don't know. I mean, you think they lost 100,000 roughly of their number trying to take the city? I mean, they could have.
Oh, for sure.
It's a lot of people to kill.
Mm-hmm. Right. I like this section because it very quickly and concisely like tells us, because of the military or the Malazan's military prowess, right? The way that they do things and the fact that the Panions are not an organized army, right? They were just instantly slaughtered. And I don't know, I guess it was just kind of cool, happened so swiftly.
I really liked the descriptions of like their tactics and stuff that they used. Like I could visualize that, and I know sometimes I felt like in the past, like in Deadhouse Gates, maybe you struggled with some of that. I don't know how you felt on this one. Maybe it was clear to you on this one, but I enjoyed that in this part of the chapter.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense to me. I mean, I could totally visualize it. And I think it's because of Deadhouse Gates. Obviously, that one YouTube video guy that I always watched about the battles in Deadhouse Gates definitely helped to visualize it. But I think that inside my head, that's kind of how I think about it now, is just like as a map and there are forces. Yeah, I think I'll just take it as me getting better at this.
Nice. Yeah. It made me think of like Alexander, like, and like Romans and stuff, like I'm not saying that those tactics are the same as this, but like it made me think like that type of fighting. They're just like forming up on the line. You got like squares of guys, and that's like literally what they are. It's like you got, X number of guys, and they're arranged in a square. You got guys with shields up front, and then, the guy behind them, they got like a long pike or spear or whatever to, stab them as they get close, and
Yeah.
guys with crossbows or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, it totally made sense to me, but I mean, outside of that, I don't have anything else to really comment on because it was very action packed, and at the end here, we kind of, get a transition, right? Like Whiskey Jack is going to a command tent with Corlat via Warren. Yeah, I guess we can probably move on to that.
All right. Whiskey Jack had only traveled by Warren a few times, and those did not prepare him for Crald Ghislaine. Corlat took his hand and led him into the realm of Mother Dark, and he saw nothing. She pulled him forward. It hardly felt like his boots touched the ground. A streak of gray flashed in front of his eyes, and Corlat said even here they were attacked by the Crippled God. Whiskey Jack said he assumed that Animander Rake knew about this and asked if he had a plan. Corlat told him to be patient, as he dealt with one thing at a time. He did not shy away from confrontation. Whiskey Jack sarcastically said he wouldn't have guessed that, and he asked what he was waiting for. Corlat said the Tystandi were patient. When it's the right moment, he will strike. Whiskey Jack said he assumed that was the same mentality for unleashing Moonspawn on the Panions. Corlat said yes. Whiskey Jack remarked that she had a lot of faith in her lord. Corlat said she was comforted by certainty. He asked if she was comfortable with him, Whiskey Jack. She said without a doubt, yes, and wanted to know if she could ask him the same question. Whiskey Jack said she should not need to. His answer was the same as hers. They left the warren and entered Dujak's tent. There was an apparition. It was Quickben, and he said that he didn't remember the last time he had had a woman. Whiskey Jack told him to watch his mouth and that he looked like shit. Quickben said thanks, and he felt even worse than he looked, but he was now able to use his warrens, so that's a plus. He was mostly shielded from the Crippled God's touch, and he has news from Capustan. Did he want to hear it? Whiskey Jack told him to go ahead. Quickben said the White Faces hold the city. Whiskey Jack said they assumed as much once Twist brought news of his, or Quickben's, success with the Barghast, and once the Panions fell right into their path. Quickben said he would add that, assuming they took care of the Panion army, the Barghast would be marching south as well. If he and Dujek thought it was tense with Brood and Calor and company, no offense to Corlat, of course, now you get to add Humbrol Tower to the mix. Whiskey Jack asked what he was like, and Quickben said he was too clever for his own good, but he had united all the clans, and he understands the mess they are headed to. Whiskey Jack asked next how Paran and the Bridgeburners were. Quickben said by all reports they were fine, but he had not seen them in a while. They were at the thrall with the survivors of the city. Whiskey Jack was surprised to hear there were any that survived. Quickben said it was a few gray swords and those that hid in the tunnels under the city, but he doubted they had much fight left in them. From what he had heard, the streets are like they need to be seen to be believed, which he was about to do as long as Whiskey Jack gave him leave to do so. Whiskey Jack told him to be careful. Quickben said no one would see him unless he wanted to be seen and wanted to know when they would arrive at the city. Whiskey Jack said they had the Tenascowry to deal with, and that might get tricky. Quickben asked if he was going to parley with them. Whiskey Jack said they might. It's a better option than slaughtering them. Quickben said the Barghast are returning with stories of what they saw, what the Tenascowry did. They had a leader named Annister, a leader who personally skinned Prince Jalarkin alive. They ate him as a main course in his own throne room. Whiskey Jack said that if those crimes could be laid at his feet, then the military justice of the Malazans would prevail. Quickben replied that simple and quick executions will grant them a mercy that was not afforded to those of the city. Whiskey Jack said then they would be lucky it was them who found them and not someone else. Quickben said those that survive might not appreciate this method. It may be difficult times ahead. Whiskey Jack appreciated the heads up. Quickben shrugged and said he would see him in Capustan and disappeared. Corlat looked at him and simply repeated the phrase Malazan military law. Whiskey Jack thought Brood was not a vengeful type of person. Did she expect to fight? Corlat said Calor would advise that. Whiskey Jack agreed, but did not think Brood would listen. He hadn't so far. Corlat said they hadn't laid eyes on the city yet. He said, horrors to answer in kind. Corlat continued saying it was an ancient, unwritten law. Whiskey Jack said he didn't buy into it. Even with the execution of over 200,000 starving peasants, would they wait their turn? He doubts it. And as prisoners, they couldn't feed them even if they tried, let alone have the manpower to guard them all. Corlat asked if he was proposing to leave them. Whiskey Jack thought she was up to something with the look in her eyes. He said no. They would take their leaders, Annister and his officers, if there were any. If the Ten Scourie walked this path of atrocity, then the first child led them. However, the real criminal was the seer himself, that would treat his followers this way, starving them into cannibalism and madness. They would be executing the victims, the seer's victims. Corlat frowned and said, by the same token, they should just forgive the Panian army. Whiskey Jack's eyes grew hard and said the enemy was the seer. He and Dujek agreed on that. They were not here to destroy a nation. The armies that blocked their path to the seer would be efficiently dealt with. Revenge was only a distraction. Corlat asked about the liberation of conquered cities. He said this was incidental and was surprised at her confusion on this. When they discussed tactics with Brood, they would strike for the heart. Corlat cut him off, saying he was the one who misunderstood. For a decade, Brood had been waging a war of liberation against the Malazan Empire. Brood had only shifted his focus, though the war remains the same. He is here to liberate the Panians. Whiskey Jack said you couldn't free people from themselves. Corlat said they would free them from the seer. Whiskey Jack asked who she thought gave the seer his present status. Whiskey Jack said they had no intention of playing judge and executioner if they were victorious. They were here to put the pieces back together. The rest was for the Panians to do. If they were to take it on, they would quickly become administrators. And to do that, they would need to occupy. Corlat asked, is that not the Malazan way? Whiskey Jack said this is not a Malazan war. Corlat asked if he was sure about that. He said Onearm's host was outlawed, and he quickly shut his mouth, realizing what he said. She had a smile and said Dujek approaches, and left the tent. He threw his gauntlets down and wondered if he should have told her the truth about the situation. Dujek entered, and immediately Whiskey Jack said that Brood knew. Dujek asked what Brood had figured out. He replied that they weren't outlaws. They weren't the outlaws they made themselves out to be. Dujek poured 2 cups of ale and said they were mitigating circumstances, which Whiskey Jack said only applied to them. Continuing, Dujek said also their army. Dujek asked if he thought they should lay all their cards on the table, hoping Brood and Corlat would help them out. Whiskey Jack wasn't sure, especially if they were hoping for forgiveness for lying all this time. There was a thud at the door of the tent. It was Artanthos. He said Brood had called a meeting. Dujek said to lead the way. They were right behind him.
Ooh, some tension.
For sure. What did you make of that?
Well, I mean, I don't really quite know because I feel like there's so many variables here that I'm not sure if the way that I'm thinking is correct. But I mean, I get the sense that the main confrontation is that Corlat, Brood, and everyone else are more interested in liberating what the Panians have taken. Whereas Whiskey Jack and Dewjack are not. They just kind of want to kill the Panty Seer and be done with it and leave it up to the Panions to kind of figure out. From Corlot's perspective, that seems kind of hypocritical because the Malazans are essentially doing the same thing as the Panions on Genebacus, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I will go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so that's what Corlot is like. Is that not the Malazan way? She's making a point to say that, like, well, you're kind of doing the same thing the Panions are, and we've been at war with you, trying to do the same thing and liberate those cities you've taken control of.
Right.
Sorry, what were you gonna say though?
Well, I was gonna say that I never really thought of it as two separate, I guess, actions. I thought the goal was to, yes, defeat the Panions and liberate the cities, where it maybe wasn't so much liberating the Panions from Whiskey Jack's point of view. It was just getting rid of the Seer. So I thought that was interesting.
I don't quite understand how Corlot figures out that he's lying, though.
I don't either. I'm not, I don't know. I guess, the only thing I can think of is that, she's been around a while. She's seen some shit. She can probably pick up on some things. But if there was something specific that was dropped to her or said, I guess I missed it as far as that went.
Yeah, I feel like it happened in a couple of chapters ago, but I can't recall what it was that was said that kind of made everybody working with Dewjack and Whiskey Jack figure out that the outlaw thing was just a guise. And maybe that is kind of what Corlot is saying by, is that not the Malazan way? Because yes, you're outlawed, but not really. So that still technically makes you under Lacine's rule, and Lacine still wants Genebacus. Are you just going to take over these cities once you take care of the Panions? Like, because what he's saying is like, we're just going to go after the Seer, and in the event that, like, God, what does he say?
Like where he's talking about it being inconsequential and stuff.
Yeah, like where he's saying, if it comes down to it, like the Panions can, what the fuck, like set up a government and stuff like that. Is kind of the way that I got a sense of that.
Oh, because they didn't want to be the administrators and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, there'd be a lot to take on.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the rest was for the Panions to do. If they were to take it on, they would become administrators and to do that, they would need to occupy. And then Corlot said, is that not the Malazan way? I think that maybe is what gave him away, is that they would have to become administrators. They would need to occupy these cities.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So maybe that's what gave it away, but I guess, community, feel free to throw us a bone here. But yeah, what outside of that, what did you have for us?
So my first thought here, Corlat, well, Whiskey Jack asks if she's comfortable with him, and she's, resoundingly says yes. And she wants to ask, the same question of him. And Whiskey Jack just kind of like dodges the question, kind of, like, oh, you shouldn't have to ask that. He tells her yes without actually saying the word yes. He's like, my answer is the same as yours. It just seems like it's such an odd relationship, but I'm interested to see where it continues to go from here.
Yeah, it definitely does seem odd. I think that Whiskey Jack just feels very guarded, and for good reason. I guess I don't know what his past relationships were like, but he just seems very cautious.
Yeah, he does. But it's pretty clear that he cares for Corlat too, and maybe he just doesn't like. I'm sure he's probably like afraid of like fucking it up or something bad happening.
Yeah. What do we got next?
Quick Ben, I actually found myself chuckling quite a bit throughout this entire chapter. It's just, he says, oh, I don't know the last time I had a woman. It's just like, he just always has kind of that, I don't know, it's like the right thing to say, but he just kind of got that quip.
Oh, well, maybe
at the right moment.
We should rename him to Quip Ben.
There you go. Good one.
Yeah, he seems like very sarcastically envious with this statement here.
Yeah.
Which I don't even know if those two words work together. sarcasm and envy, but it works.
I feel it. Makes sense.
Yeah, he's kind of a witty little shit, isn't he?
Yes. Yes, he is. Let's see here. Quick Ben, he goes on to ask Whiskey Jack if he's going to parley with the Tenniscourie, and Whiskey Jack says, well, it's a better option than killing all of them. I kind of feel like they should just kill them all. And maybe
Really?
that's just like brutal and yeah, wrong of me. Yeah, well, like with these people, like, I mean, I feel like they're just wild. Like, how could you possibly like talk any sense to them or like retrain them? Just kill them all with fire, be done with them, start over.
I mean, maybe, I don't know. I feel like that's not very empathetic of you, but
Well, I get. Trust me, I get it because I'm like, yeah, I feel like it's going to be kind of a hot take, but like, I think that's the better option. I just think about like 200,000 people, and like you already said, like we don't have enough food to feed all these people to begin with. And then on top of that, we can't possibly guard all of them. Then don't even bother. Just lop their heads off and be done with it. Like, yeah, it's nasty. It's cruel, but it's certainly not any worse than what they did to other people or what they were forced into on each other.
yeah,
Like, just end it. Start a new cycle.
yeah. I feel like it's one of those things where like you view them as like feral people, whereas I feel like they've just been indoctrinated by beliefs of the Pantheon. If they are that small-minded, I guess, to be that gullible into following the Pantheon's bullshit, don't you think that they would be easily convinced at something else?
No.
Or do you think they're deeply rooted into this faith?
Yes. I think they're too far gone. I mean, you can look at our own real world for examples if you want, in our current day, in our country, even without me saying more. But like, you're not going to change people's minds. Like, they're just like, "Meh."
Even if you give them a better option, a better life.
Do you think they're going to see that as a better option or a better life? Like, most of these people don't know anything different. Like, it's just how this has always been for them. They were born into it.
I guess maybe you have a point. I don't know. I feel like that goes.
Maybe I'm just
the theme
just a cold-hearted
of
dick, I guess. I don't know.
I wouldn't say cold-hearted dick. I think that it goes against the theme of compassion.
I guess, if you want to boil it down to, I guess, the simplest terms I can think of, I think it's probably the safer option.
Fair enough. I mean, I feel like we do get a little bit of an answer to this at the very end of the book, though.
The chapter?
Yes, chapter.
We haven't finished the book.
Yeah.
Just so people don't get the wrong idea that we've read way ahead, and we've not finished this book.
No, we have not finished the book. Let me clarify. I feel like we do get a little bit of an answer at the end of the chapter.
Yes, but I don't know. I would be so skeptical. I'd be like that it's going to work.
I'm sure we could probably talk about it then.
I feel like like that's the Caller movie. He'd be like, just fucking kill them all. I'd be like, yeah, Caller, like I'm on your side, dude. Like, let's just blow them all apart.
Right. So maybe that is also kind of a point of where Corlott is coming from, is that she sees Whiskey Jack not being compassionate.
Maybe.
And therefore would like drive her to thoughts of like, oh, well, you're not actually outlawed because your actions and your words are not matching here.
Could be. My last thought, Whiskey Jack says this is not a Malazan war. And I don't know why he feels that way, because as far as we've seen so far, the Malazans are the main opposition to the Panions, right? Like, yeah, like they're going up against cities and stuff, but like there's not really a whole lot of resistance there. Come up against a city and they'd siege it and take it over or whatever. Well, now we see them kind of get their ass kicked. So to me, it's like, well, this is a Malazan war. Like, you're the ones who like put up a fight against these guys, kind of routed them, but you're still involved. Like, I mean, to me, it's a Malazan war.
Maybe. I guess I don't know if I have any particular specific thoughts on that.
That's fair. Yeah, that was all I had here for this section. Unless there's anything else you want to talk about?
Not at all. I love kind of the character dynamics here. I mean, you take two people here that are technically on different sides, right? And they kind of have this like Romeo and Juliet type vibe going temporarily. Anyway, like there's a temporary truce, but there's still some hostility there. But they still have their own perspectives. They're in a relationship, so to speak. You know, like they like each other, they love each other. So yeah, I like that tension, that build up there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're ready to continue on, I'm ready as well.
Go ahead, buddy.
All right, section 4 here. The encampment had become quiet. The Maibi didn't realize how comforting the army's presence had become on the march. She had no idea how the battle fared, but either way, the deaths would be felt. She thought to herself that victory was an illusion. She fled in her dreams every night and eventually caught, only to awaken to aching bones and stiff joints. She thought to herself that this was an illusion in all things. The wagon had become her entire world, and the blankets she wrapped herself in was her landscape. Examining the wooden slats, the grain on them which becomes intimate knowledge. She recalls that far to the north among the Nathi, their dead were buried in wooden boxes. Wood was born of the earth, and so it would return to the earth. A vessel of life, now a vessel of death. She imagined what a dead Nathi would see when the lid finally closed, and how much it would match how she felt. A body past usefulness, awaiting the darkness. There would be no end, not for her anyway. They were keeping it that way, playing out their delusions of mercy and compassion by feeding her, and the Rivi woman who cleaned and bathed her and combed her hair. She thought that these were gestures of malice, playing over and over in her head. The Rivi woman sat above her now, combing her hair, a woman she remembered from her other life. An older woman, a hapless woman who seemed as if she was kicked in the head by a behedron. She thought to herself that this woman lived in a simple world, but that was just one more illusion. No, this woman lives amongst unknowns and things she can't even comprehend. She sings to ward off her own fears, born of her own ignorance. Before coming to the Maibi, this woman had helped prepare corpses, because the spirits worked through childlike adults, so they could get closer to the dead. Closer, so they could guide the spirits to the world of the ancestors. The Maibi concluded that it could be nothing other than malice. To have had this woman set upon her, the woman met no one's eyes, ever. The comb dragged back and forth, and the woman's humming continued. The Maibi thought to herself that she would almost welcome the spirit's terror of the unknown, preferably that than the knowledge of her daughter's betrayal, or the wolves that had been sent upon her. The hunger that has devoured her youth and still seeks more. Is there anything even left? She begs the spirits to end it all. So as it's become too much to bear, sever her from her daughter as she feels nothing but spite, for she has nothing else to give, as she remains a young woman trapped inside an old body. The comb snagged on a snarl, tugging the Maibi's head back. The Maibi hissed at the pain, and she shot a glare up at the woman behind her. Her heart lurched as their gazes locked. She thought to herself that she was a young woman in an old woman's body, and that the Rivi woman was a child in a woman's body, a perfect reflection, and their eyes remained locked. This was an interesting section, and I'm kind of glad that we come to the Maibi here for just a very brief bit. It's almost kind of like she was, it says at the beginning that she was comforted by the army's presence on the march, and now that they are not there, it's almost kind of like her thoughts are just running rampant, as if like the army was kind of a distraction to that.
Yeah.
But I just, my first point is just when she's talking about how the Nathi would bury their dead, and she's thinking about if a dead Nathi had the ability to see what they would be experiencing when the lid finally closed on them, and how it would match how much she felt. A body past usefulness, awaiting the darkness. I just couldn't help but write, like, my Jesus, maybe, like, holy fucking shit, this is depressing. I never could have imagined, like, much darkness in this woman's thoughts. But I get it. I understand.
Yeah, she's ready to be done.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm surprised she's made it this far in the book, I wouldn't have thought she'd survive this long. But it almost feels like she's being kept alive against her will.
That's kind of what like she's making it seem, but I guess I don't see that. Obviously there's a purpose, right? Like it seems that whatever Krupp and Silverfox are doing is out of compassion. But maybe that's a bad thing.
Feels right in their hearts, but maybe is not morally the right thing.
Right. Something like that, moral dilemma, so to speak. One of the other things that I kind of picked up here is I don't know if like the Myvi is just being unfairly critical of this Rivi woman who is combing her hair currently, but it almost kind of makes it seem that this woman has like some type of mental illness is kind of what I'm getting is either one of those two scenarios. Like either the Myvi is being just harshly critical or this woman has some type of mental illness by being kicked in the head by a Behedron.
Well, I mean, I think her brain's probably a little rattled. Like, imagine if you got kicked in the head by a buffalo, you're probably lucky to be alive.
Yeah. I don't know. I get the sense that the Myvi is just being kind of unfairly critical, but I could be wrong. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what it is that's happening there.
Well, I mean, just like, look how opposite she is. Like, the Myvi is like this, I guess I'm not sure how I'm going to like word this, but she's like this critical thinking young woman who's stuck in the body of an old woman, right?
Yeah.
And now you got this lady, I don't want to say brain dead, but I mean, she's not all there, I guess is maybe the nicest way I can put it, after getting kicked in the head by a large animal. And who can falter for that? Because I'm sure if I got kicked in the head by a horse, like not the same. Right. And so you got this lady who doesn't function on the same level as she probably should for her like body. She's probably kind of jealous of like, like, well, this body's just being wasted on her. Like that could be me, that should be me. And it's, not like we should have things reversed here. That would be more appropriate.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, I get where you're coming from. And I mean, she even kind of makes that statement at the end of the section here where she's like, the Rivi woman was a child in a woman's body. And she was a young woman in an old woman's body. And it's kind of a perfect reflection, even though they are kind of opposite situations. This woman had an opportunity to get old, right?
Right. Yeah.
I feel like we've talked about everything that I have to say. Oh, the last thing. Just the whole part about like this Rivi woman not ever locking eyes with anybody, and now it happens, and I'm wondering if that's alluding to anything.
I guess I don't know. It certainly could be, and I just wonder if it's just again kind of one of those things like, it's like a magnet. They're so opposite, and now their eyes are locked together here for a moment or two, wishing that things were different.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see if there's anything there, or if that means anything, but it could just be one of those things in the moment too. So, but yeah, I mean, those are the only things that I had to say.
All right. Section 5 here. I feel like we're moving along pretty decent.
I would say so.
Krupp spoke and said she looked like a tired lass. If she sat, he would pour her some herbal brew. She sat and asked Krupp where his friends were. He said gambling with the crew of the Trigali Trade Guild. He thought it was an outrage that he was barred from participating. He held out a cup and saying it was mostly sage. If she had a cough, Silverfox cut him off saying she didn't, but would welcome it anyways. Krupp, of course, never coughs. Silverfox asked why, and he gave the obvious answer. He drinks the tea. Silverfox asked how she was doing, and Krupp said she might ask herself. Silverfox said she couldn't. She could only ever be an abomination to her mother, her stolen youth in the flesh. Her mother despises her, especially now that Corlat told her about the Tlan Eye. Krupp wondered if she doubted the journey she had undertaken. Silverfox said it was too late for that. Besides, their journey was done. Only her mother's remained. Krupp said her journey was not over, but they could come back to that later. Had she heard the news of how the battle went? She said it was over. The Panian forces are no more, except for a couple 100,000 poorly armed peasants. The white-faced Bargas had liberated what was left of the city. The bridge burners are within the city, and most pressing was that Brood had called a meeting. she thought Krupp might like to attend. Krupp said, if only to bless the council with his awesome wisdom. Was she not planning on attending? She reminded him that he had already said her journey was not over. Krupp wished her well and hoped to see her again soon. She said he would as she finished her tea and stood up. Krupp asked if something was wrong. She said she wasn't sure, but there was a part of her that had a sudden urge to join him at the meeting. Krupp repeated, a part? She said yes and wondered which part, whose soul twitches with suspicion. Krupp said she was torn and said to consider it a minor delay and that it shouldn't affect her destiny or its outcome. Could she spare the time to accompany him to the warlord's command tent? Silverfox knew he had a hunch. Krupp said if a rift is imminent, then her being there could be important because she is the bridge between the two camps. Silverfox said she did not trust Nightchill. Krupp said most mortals fail in trusting at least part of themselves from time to time, except for Krupp, of course. Silverfox relented and said they should get going.
Interesting section. I kind of like Krupp here for once.
Well, I always kind of thought you were a Krupp fan anyways, but most of the time he talks in riddles and shit, but...
Right, I feel like he was
really
very
different
clear here. Yeah, I feel like he was very direct and understandable, but maybe I'm just getting used to like the way that he talks, but it almost seems like he's just like he genuinely cares in this particular situation.
Yeah, but still, like, part of me wonders, like, is he just kind of doing this for his own gain and that type of thing? But
it's always
hard to say with Krupp.
Yeah, exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth.
I only had a couple thoughts here, but my first one here is, Silverfox asked how her mother's doing, and Krupp's just like, you could just ask her yourself. And Silverfox is like, I can't do that. Like, I'm an abomination to my mom. I'm everything she's not. She hates me. She despises me, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like it's just kind of one of those things that if Silverfox sat down with her mom, like, they could hash it out. Like, if they had a conversation and just know what the other is thinking and how they're feeling, like, I think they could probably overcome these perceived differences, because it's like they're both kind of afraid of each other, I feel like. And if they just talked it out, they'd probably realize they have quite a bit in common.
Right, exactly. I feel like it's always hard to initiate, right? Especially when two people are so divisive to each other. It's hard to build up enough courage to have those conversations that are uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy for sure.
Yeah. So I get where she's coming from, and I think that Krupp understands too, but
my other thought here, Silverfox says she wasn't sure, but she just has the sudden urge to join the meeting. And I'm wondering, like, do you think there's something more to this tea that Krupp gave her, or no? Like, do you think that's like what? Yeah, no.
No, I think it's just the dueling personalities that she's got going on.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's just Nightchill is for whatever reason very piqued by what's going on and what could potentially be said in the command tent.
Sure. It felt weird to me how he keeps like, this tea, it'll take care of your cough. And, I never have a cough because I drink the tea and blah, blah, blah. He just keeps going on about this tea, and it just seems like nonsense. But like, just made me wonder, like, if there's something to it.
Yeah. I feel like if it was the tea, that it probably would have done a lot more than just gave her an urge.
Fair.
So, but yeah, I mean, interesting section. I'm curious as to where this is going. I mean, when I first read this, I definitely got the feeling that Silverfox was going to go do whatever she was going to do, which we do find out a little bit later, but.
Right. Yeah, I don't have anything else here. That was just a couple quick thoughts I had on that shorter section. And, I was really surprised for such a long chapter. I didn't think either of us really got stuck with a super long section throughout here.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think we both kind of had an equal share in longer sections and got some good reprieve with some shorter ones.
Yeah, which was kind of nice for a change.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm ready to move on if you are.
Yeah, go ahead. Take it away, man.
Sweet. Rake entered Brood's tent from his corralled Ghislaine warren. Brood told him that he was late and that the Malazans were already on their way. Rake shrugged and said, "What of it?" Or was he to make another decision? Corlott cleared her throat and explained that the alliance has come under question. Kaller took the opportunity to say that it wasn't under question, as they've been lied to since the very start, and they should swiftly strike against the Malazans before they could recover from today's battle. Rake was silent, studying his allies. He then smiled and said that if by lying they were referring to the hidden daggers of the Empress behind Whiskey Jack and Dujack's back. It would seem that action is required, but Rake doesn't think it needs to go that far, and rather their position to be that of intervening on the sake of Whiskey Jack and Dujack, unless Rude was no longer confident in their capabilities as commanders. Rake explains that from Krone's report of the battle, the Malazans were professional and relentless. Kaller explained that it wasn't their fighting, but rather that this Panian war was supposed to be about liberation. Rude takes Kaller's side about liberating the Panian domain. Rude expresses his concerns about liberation and crushing the Panian seer, just for a high fist of the Malazan to take his place. Rake explains that the Panian domain saw horrors and oppression, and for that reason alone was why they were marching against it. Kaller interjects to say that this is what they've been telling Rake this whole time, to liberate the people. Rake tells him to stop being so repetitive, as he's aware of this reason. Rake explains that this reason is the least important. Answering Brood's questions about the Malazans taking control, would it really be as bad? From his knowledge, the Malazan law is the least repressive of any empire he's ever known. Rake says to the others that in truth, Rude and himself have fought the Malazans as liberators, asking for nothing in return. Their motives aren't even clear to them, so think of how the Empress looks upon them. She doesn't even know why we're their enemy, or we're her enemy. Kaller sneered and said that in her empire there would be no place for them. Rake rebutted, and asked if this surprised him. They cannot be controlled, and that in the truth was why they fight for their own freedom. No borders for Moonspawn, no world-spanning peace that would make military generals and soldiers obsolete. Why envy what the Empress seeks to possess and its responsibilities? Corlott stared at her lord in awe and thought to herself how he thought so much differently than the rest of them. She wondered if that was because of the draconian blood. A sudden swelling of pride filled within her. Rude let out a disgusted sigh, and Kaller said he'd set his disgust aside. He recaps that Capustan has been cleansed. He suggests that a single army would be too slow, as there is a river to the south and then the city of Seta, before ultimately making their way to Coral. The question, though, was on which lines do they divide. Rake said that this was something that they would have to discuss at the meeting. Regret filled Corlott's mind and hope that Whiskey Jack could forgive her for her haste judgment earlier. The tent flap opened as the two Malazan commanders entered the tent, followed by Artanthos. Dujack apologizes for being late, as he was just informed that the Tenaskauri were on the move and headed straight for them. Rake said to leave that to him, which caught Whiskey Jack by surprise, as he wasn't expecting the Lord of the Moonspawn to be there. Dujack inquired if that meant Rake was going to take care of the Tenaskauri. He explained that he simply means to scare them in person. Rude, while fumbling around for some cups, explained that there were other matters to discuss. Rude explains that Kaller has noted a pending problem in the disposition of their forces. Corlott explains to the High Fist what they think they should do. Dujack said that he understood, but sat down and said nothing. Whiskey Jack said that the solution was obvious, and that Onearm's host would head southwest to Seta, and the warlord and his forces head to Lest. Once Seta is taken, they will strike for the Marik River, then follow it to the city of Marik itself. It's likely that the warlord will arrive there first, but that shouldn't be an issue. Rude said that he agreed. Whiskey Jack, however, said that he said initially. All heads turned to look at him. Whiskey Jack shrugged and said that the white-faced Barghast are joining the campaign, and the remaining defenders of Capustan would want to join in on the fun. Also, there's a looming question of Silverfox and her Talani mass. Haller starts an argument with Whiskey Jack about this premise to the point where Brood steps in and tells him to knock it the fucketh off. He tells everyone that this meeting will end and then continue when all the commanders are present to continue the discussion. Brood turns to Rake and asks how Moonspawn fared. Rake shrugged and said that he will reconvene in Coral as planned. He also explains that the Seer has been under considerable assault from the south. He explains that his great ravens have caught sight of who attacks. The Seer has fled Outlook via Omatos Block and will be arriving in Coral. They speculate on who is attacking the Seer, and it seems they push the Seer into their laps. And that when they get to Coral, they will be facing the Seer himself. Dujek interjects that it will be heavy on the sorcery and a bloody engagement. Brood assures him that they still have plenty of time to formulate their tactics. He then adjourns the meeting. All right. So my first thought in this particular section is what Rake says about the hidden daggers of the Empress behind Whiskey Jack and Dujack's back. So I'm kind of getting like a double cross type of feeling from Lucine here. Like pretend to be an outlaw to gain their trust or such and such, you know? Like it kind of seems that they were forced to say that they were outlawed, if that makes sense.
I mean, I guess that's kind of how I thought we had felt as soon as we got that realization.
I feel like that's our feeling as well, but I mean it's been so far gone since this conversation has really kind of come up. But I mean it makes sense, which also, if you remember at the end of Deadhouse Gates when Lucine and Kalam have their conversation, right? Like she makes it seem like whatever was happening was not the case. And I knew it back then that she was full of shit, because I feel like this kind of confirms that.
Sure.
Yeah. And I also kind of feel for Rake, as old as he is, right? For him to say that the Malazan law is the least oppressive of any empire he's ever known, I feel like that's kind of a big deal for him to say something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean he's been around for God knows how long, thousands of years, right? Like he's seen a thing or two, like the fucking State Farm commercial says, or whatever, farmers commercial. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
Right, exactly.
It's a bad comparison, but
I think this is what kind of makes Corlott realize that she was maybe too harsh with Whiskey Jack earlier. And I like how this kind of comes back, and it's not Whiskey Jack who makes her kind of regret her what she says to Whiskey Jack. I feel like the majority of the things that happen in this chapter, or not chapter, but section, are ones that we kind of already know about, like the Barghast joining the fight. The remaining Grey Swords are going to want in on the fun, things like that. But I liked kind of their plan on how they were going to divide their forces. It makes sense to me.
But who was like coming up with this plan?
I mean, I feel like they both kind of came up with the plan individually. I think Callor hadn't quite elaborated as far as Whiskey Jack did, but I think that what Whiskey Jack proposed made sense to Brood, and he's like, yeah, sure, sounds good to me, you know?
You don't think Callor like suggesting things is suspicious at all?
I mean, I definitely think that it's suspicious, but it's hard to say as to whether Callor had the same idea that Whiskey Jack did.
All right.
But yes, it is definitely sus. But I mean, I feel like while it's pretty conclusive that he's in bed with the Crippled God, I don't know if this is a moment where he can kind of reveal ulterior motivations.
I'm just always kind of suspicious of what he's doing, even though like part of me kind of likes him for some weird reason. Like he's a conniving bastard, but
yeah, he is.
I don't know. He's let's see what happens here with him. I don't know what he's going to do. I still think he's going to kill Silverfox.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that he's going to try. I think that when he does, he's going to make his intentions known, and that's where he'll be like, well, sayonara, fuckers, I'm with the Crippled God now. And then, like, you know, make like Gethel and leave.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, again, I feel like the beginning of this book is just kind of very like set up-y and conversational, kind of driving the point as to like where they're going to go next for a lot of point of views. So I'm ready to move on if you are.
Yeah, I'm ready here. Outside the tent, Silverfox slowed her walking as darkness settled over the camp. Krupp sensed it too. Silverfox said she needed to attend to her destiny and asked Krupp not to tell anyone of her leaving, at least not for a little while. Krupp said the gathering had come. Silverfox agreed, saying she could feel the Talanimus coming and would rather it happen where others couldn't see. Krupp understood this was a private matter and asked if she still wanted company. He knew when to keep his mouth shut and could speak when it was appropriate. Wisdom, after all, is Krupp's blood brother. Silverfox asked if he would really witness the second gathering. He said there would be no better witness, and the tales he would tell would be wondrous, if she only asked. Silverfox said that wouldn't be the case, for a little while anyways. Silverfox said she planned to ride so they would find him a horse. Krupp said he only needed his trusty mule. Straight to the point, Silverfox asked who else would witness the second gathering through him. Krupp swore it would only be him. Silverfox pressed further, asking about the mule. Krupp told her no one would see through its eyes either. Silverfox agreed and said she assumed he was comfortable with the night ride, to which Krupp said no, but perseverance was his closest cousin.
I like your comment here.
Krupp and his family like growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, it definitely does. But I think it's just his elaborate way of talking, you know.
Yeah, like I think it's perceptive of Silverfox to ask, like, is somebody going to be watching through the mule? And Krupp says no, but I mean, do you think that's the truth, or it just seems odd? Like, I feel like there's something there, but if we're getting clues or hints on it, maybe I'm just not picking it up.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I definitely think that somebody is able to look inside of the perspective of the mule, like it's a soul taken of some kind.
Yeah, something. I don't know. I feel like something's got to be the case with it. I don't know that. I don't know.
It's tough to say, but yeah, I guess we'll just have to keep reading and find out eventually.
Right. Yeah, it was a short section. I didn't really have too much. Just, Krupp and his long lost family. But if you want to take your section here, then I think that would be good.
Sure. Before we move on, though, what do you think? Do you think that the second gathering is about to take place? Do you think that this is where Silverfox amasses the amass?
I don't know. We got to be close to it.
I would imagine. I mean, it's got to be there. I wonder what will happen. Is kind of because we really haven't seen the amass since the beginning siege of Capustan. So
yeah, it's been a while. I would think it's coming pretty quick. I know the next chapter is like 20-ish pages. I think it's under 30, somewhere between 20 and 30 pages. So
it doesn't seem very much at all.
No.
All right. Well, I'm ready to move on if you are. So
yeah, go for it, man.
All right. Rake asked Whiskey Jack to walk with him as he emerged from the tent. They strolled through the camp and then up a small rise and could see the Caitlin River. Neither spoke for a long time until Rake sighed and asked Whiskey Jack how his leg was. Whiskey Jack said that it was holding up all right. They converse a bit until the conversation turns to the talks of Corlott. Rake admits that he hasn't seen her with such renewal, and he had thought her heart would be closed forever. Whiskey Jack admits that he may have had a hand in wounding that. Rake assures him that his false outlawry was known, but Rake had managed to stifle that before the High Fist arrived. The Malazan studied Rake a bit and put it together that they still needed them, more now than ever before. Whiskey Jack brings up the need for Quick Ben, the White Face, Silverfox and her link, and then even Paran. Rake asks why Paran. Whiskey Jack explains that it was because he was now the master of the deck. Rake said that this was no surprise. Whiskey Jack is genuinely curious as to what that role even means. Rake explains the Crippled God has fashioned a house. And more or less, it will need a blessing to become a legit contender in the deck of dragons. Whiskey Jack inquires about the House of Shadow, as there wasn't a master of the deck to bless them. Rake explains that there was no need, as Kellanved and Dancer simply reawakened it, as it has always existed. Whiskey Jack predicts that they want Paran to deny the Crippled God. Rake said that he believes that Paran must do exactly that, and to grant the House of Chain legitimacy means he would have power. Whiskey Jack asks about them chaining the Crippled God before. Rake explains that it was a costly endeavor, one where Fenner was vital. Rake explains that Fenner is lost to them, stuck in the mortal realm. Whiskey Jack wonders how. Rake kind of explains the story about how Haboric lost his hands to the Revi, and that he had completed an investigation on Lacine's failed attempt to assassinate Kellanved and Dancer. Whiskey Jack said that he could see why this would make Lacine's skin crawl. Rake continues to explain how the severed hands of the priest during the Revi were a poison to Fenner, and therefore he could not touch them. Eventually, that priest would die, and his spirit will reclaim his hands from Fenner. That spirit would become the weapon of Fenner's wrath. He would enact vengeance upon the priests of that foul temple, and upon the Claw and the Empress herself. A dark storm awaited the Malazan Empire. Whiskey Jack stated that something has happened. Rake agrees, and continues to explain that the High Priest was either by design or chance, and has come into the contact with Warren of Chaos. An object found within that Warren, and the power protecting his hands was destroyed, thus allowing the priest to reclaim his hands, finding Fenner and then giving him a hard shove. Whiskey Jack muttered Hood's breath. Rake tells Whiskey Jack that Treach ascends to take Fenner's place. Whiskey Jack questions this, and Rake explains that it seems to have been foreseen by the Elder Gods. Whiskey Jack asks why they were involved. Rake explains that they were interested when the Crippled God fell. The fall destroyed many of them, and whatever secrets the Crippled God has, the Elder Gods are aware of them all. They both are still for a moment before Whiskey Jack brings the convo back to Paran. He explains that he understands Rake's position of denying the House of Chains, but warns the Lord that Paran doesn't take too kindly to orders. Rake says then, for their sake, Whiskey Jack will advise Paran on their behalf. Whiskey Jack says that he'll try. He then tells the Lord of Moonspawn that he would like to grab his ale. As he left towards the encampment, he turned around to study the Lord. He thought to himself that the ale may not be enough. Found this to be a very interesting section. And, I like it when things call back to other books. I thought it was interesting how Kellanved and Dancer simply reawakened the house, which I feel like we kind of knew but didn't know, because from what I understand, they took over the Tist Edur Warren of Shadow or something like that. What exactly happened in the history there, I'm unsure, but I think that that's kind of what happened, is that Kellanved and Dancer just reawakened it, thus not needing a master of the deck.
I just thought it was kind of interesting that something could just always be there. Didn't have to be created at some point,
I mean, I'm sure it was created at some point, but from what I understand about the world is that, Mother Dark essentially birthed the Tistiandi and then birthed the Tist Leons, or the, light and dark, and then came the Tist Edur, which were like the middle, or like I don't even know how to explain it, but it's in my head there somewhere. So I think that whatever happened, there was maybe some like sibling rivalry that was going on. They ended up decimating their own kin type of thing, and Kellanved and Dancer just simply took over.
Could be.
But yeah, this part about Heberic, I feel like this kind of explains his ghost hands a little bit, because it's saying that the power protecting his hands was destroyed by something found within the Warren of or like either contact from the Warren of Chaos or an object itself found within the Warren. So I feel like this is the reason why Haboric has his hands, his ghost hands, because they were essentially, once they were cut off by the Revi, they became spirit hands, spirit fingers, so to speak. And this is how he got them back.
Said spirit fingers, and all I could think of was salad fingers.
Nah, I was thinking about Bring It On. So, spirit fingers. Oh, well.
Oh boy.
Yeah. I'm sure there's probably more to that, but I don't know if this is directly referring to Fenner. It could very well be Wrath Fenner, but I guess I'm more leaning towards Haboric than I am Wrath Fenner.
I think I would agree.
Yeah, that's where I don't know. I kind of like that explanation a little bit. It ties in some of the events from Deadhouse Gates into what's going on. So, the timeline is kind of matching up now. I feel like we're going to see a little bit more instances from what we read in Deadhouse Gates moving on through Memories of Ice here.
I'm still curious to get that scene where Quickben's like getting his ass kicked when Kalam like calls him or whatever.
Yeah, that would definitely be interesting to see. I totally forgot about that part. But yeah, like when he's on the ship and he calls Quickben.
Yeah.
And he smells like the desert, right? So maybe now that Telemandus is offering, or is essentially his shield, maybe he makes a quick travel to 7 cities.
Maybe. I don't know. I still don't believe it, but maybe.
Maybe. But anyway, that's all the thoughts that I had on that section. So I'm good to move on if you are.
Sure. Section 9 here. Tally asked what warrant he would choose. Quickben looked at the bodies and said Rashan. Tally said he would have guessed Shadow and asked if they should continue. Quickben opened the warren and was engulfed. Tally laughed and said he would ride on his shoulders and that he didn't understand the need for the use of a warren right now. Quickben told him he needed the practice. The weight of a stick snare on his shoulder was hardly noticeable. Tally said he could handle a tumble or two, but would prefer if he didn't make it a habit. Quickben went forward, slipping through a crack in the wall, and concentrated on blending in with his surroundings. Tally said the Panions were all gone. What reason was there to hide? Quickben said it was in his nature. Caution has kept him alive, and then told him to shut up. They entered a street lined with Daru estates. While most of the other streets had been cleared of corpses, this one had not. Panion soldiers lay dead everywhere, heaped around one estate in particular. Tally recognized it as the necromancer's estate, the ones who took him from his barrow. Quickben said he thought he didn't have anything to fear from them. Tally said that was true, but it didn't diminish his hatred or disgust for them. Quickben said that was too bad, so sad, as he was going to talk to them. Tally asked why, and Quickben said it was to get a measure of them. Telemandus said whatever they were was nothing good. Quickben replied, saying, and he was? He needed to think. Tally spoke up, saying he'd never get past the undead guards. Quickben reminded him that when he said he needs to think, he means to shut his mouth. Quickben said they would need a different warrant for this, either Hood's own or Errol Gamelon. Tally had never heard of that one. Quickben said it was demonic. Most conjurers who summon a demon are opening a path to Gamelon, though they probably didn't know it. Not by its true name, anyways. Also, if his instincts are accurate, there are both types of necromancy here. He did hear Tally correctly when he said there was 2 of them. Tally said yes, along with 2 types of madness. Quickben said it sounded interesting. Tally said this was a whim. Had he learned nothing from all his multiple souls? Whims are deadly. Do something for no reason other than curiosity, and a wolf's jaws close on your throat. Even if you escape it, it'll haunt you. Quickben said he talked too much, and he had made a decision. He folded his warrant of Rashan about himself. Tally cursed. Quickben said this was the safer choice since Hood himself had blessed Tally, who replied saying he wasn't comforted. Quickben studied as things changed around him. Death was everywhere. Souls trapped in a loop of their last moments. Sounds of death and destruction all around. Quickben quickly realized that this was all a memory. The souls have all gone through Hood's gate. Tally asked what had happened. Who had taken all these souls? Quickben said they had been blessed, all their pain taken. Perhaps it was the work of the Mass Council. Tally thought not. Quickben thought perhaps the city would recover after all. Quickben and Tally were invisible to the guards and one of the necromancers. The only issue was with the other. If he had released any demons to beef up the estate's defenses. Tally said he smelled something. A Syrinth demon had been hiding in the shadow. It was bigger than a Beardran bull, and in short bursts could be very fast. And a short burst was all it would need to reach Quickben. Tally shrieked. Quickben opened another warren and stepped back into it, this one covering Hood's. The demon tried to follow, but was limited by a chain around its neck. Quickben suggested a trade. He would free it, and the demon would go find his loved one. Peace between them. The demon sat motionless and revealed its eyes. Quickben knew in the mortal realm they would burn like fire, but here they were almost harmless. But he knew not to be lulled into a false sense of safety. He said he would need a closer look at the chain, and if the demon attacked, he would put it in Hood's warren. Dead, but not dead. Trapped forever. Tally said the other guards were coming, and that Quickben was a fool. Looking at the collar, Quickben said it was interesting that there was high Corlai script on it, which hadn't been used in centuries. Able to unfasten it. The demon turned with jaws wide. However, Quickben was ready and already jumping back into Hood's warren. Tally clung to Quickben, who froze in place. They were surrounded by motionless figures, and the demon was no longer visible. Tally asked why they were doing this. Quickben said because it was fun. The door was unlocked. They went in, and Quickben asked what warren to use next. Quickben thought to himself, it should be obvious why he was doing this. He needs the practice, and he needs to know how effective Tally is. So far, things had gone well. He was happy. Tally said Driss, the path of stone. Quickben opened it and slid into the wall. He had found the main chamber and saw a man reading a book while another stoked a fire. The man reading told the Mansipor when he was done to have the guards return to their post. Mancy said if they have unwelcome guests, they should do something about it. The other man said he doesn't like losing his demons, but doesn't assume all visitors have ill intent. They would wait for them to show up. Tally told Quickben to leave him in the wall when he makes his entrance. Treachery from this man was all but assured. Quickben stepped forward out of his warren. The man told Mancy to get some wine, who was surprised and wondered where he'd come from. Quickben said wine would be lovely. The man told him to sit and introduced himself as Bauchelain. Quickben introduced himself, and Bauchelain said that was a good name, as the demon must have tried to attack when he released it. Quickben said it was clever to put a holdover spell on the collar, one last command to kill whoever freed it, except for him. Bauchelain said he never freezes demons. He holds no sympathy for tools. Does Quickben feel sad if a dagger breaks in a man's back? Quickben said it depended on if he killed the bastard or just made him mad. Bauchelain said then he weeps for himself. Quickben replied he was making a joke. Mancy returned with the wine, saying he took a taste below to see if it was flowery, but didn't really know what that should taste like. Bauchelain said they would need to continue his education, and said flowery would be the opposite of woody, and named off a couple plants, which Quickben pointed out were poisonous. Bauchelain said it was just to paint a picture for Mancy, and asked before he poured from the bottle if the aftertaste was bitter or sweet. Mancy said it was thick, like iron. Bauchelain called him an idiot and said this was blood from Corporal Broach's collection. He needed wine from the opposite row. Mancy was surprised it was blood and asked whose it was. Bauchelain asked if he thought it really mattered. Quickben said to Mancy, it apparently does. Bauchelain said he usually didn't ask, but he thought it might be a virgin's blood because it tasted woody.
Well, interesting section here, sir. When I first read this, I was not expecting Quickben to be on his list of things to do.
Yeah, like you said, interesting section. I don't really know what I was expecting out of their interaction. If this was it or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I found Bauchelain's coolness or calmness to Quickben intruding here kind of disturbing. Just so calm and cool and collected about it.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, you like set my demon free or whatever you did to it. I'm not entirely sure if he trapped it or set it free. But yeah, he's like, I don't like losing a demon, but I don't think intruders are always
right.
Like I kind of thought like Bauchelain would be like, the guy to shoot first and ask questions later if somebody broke in.
Yeah, and I mean I know more kind of unveils about kind of their interaction here, but again, I really feel like it's mainly just Quick Ben trying to test out the shield. Like he seems to be hopping between different things, like going into Doris, Hood's Warren, the Demon Warren, and just kind of testing out all of what his skills are.
Yeah, which I mean, we get. I think I feel like we get confirmation of that here shortly from now. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I know I said it earlier, but I've just kind of imagined Talamandus as this like little Groot that can talk. But I don't really know how you felt about like reading, when he's going through like the walls and stuff. But I just felt like it was almost like this 2D thing, like turns into like a little Paper Mario type deal. This is kind of what I thought of.
No, I guess I more thought of it like when you're playing a video game and you kind of clip into the wall a little bit is kind of where my head went with that particular scene, or like just if I imagined myself as like a 3D character and the game developers forgot to set a boundary on one particular section of wall and I just went through it.
Okay.
But now I'm
I
stuck,
gotcha.
so I have to like restart the game.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I didn't really have a whole lot on this section either. The whole like wine thing was kind of interesting. Like he's talking about, oh, well, like flowery would be like these types of plants, and Quickman's like, well, those are poisonous, and he's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. But then like this whole like thing where he's like, oh, I usually wouldn't ask, but this must be a virgin's blood, and he's like, well, how do you know? It's like because it tastes woody. So it's just like a boner joke or what? Like,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like a male version.
right? Yeah, I don't know.
I just read that last part of your comment. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I wonder where this is going. Like, what is Quick Ben's motivation to going here? How does he even know these guys exist?
Well, he knew from Talamandus that necromancers pulled him out of his barrow.
Well, right, but I mean, like, why would it be any more than that?
I don't know. I don't know that he's really going to like team up with them, but maybe he's going to get some sort of information from them that will help him against the Crippled God.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I know that happens later on when we get to that section. So maybe this is just kind of set up for that particular scene. Is that like he's essentially invaded this home. Quick Ben has dispersed of whatever demon was it kind of seems like it was like hanging on within one of the warrens he was using, the demon warren, and slipped out through Hood's warren as he released the Sinrith demon. This section was a little hard to follow in my opinion, but I mean I get the premise.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it was kind of confusing at points, but I think for the most part it kind of followed. I mean, he's having a conversation with Bauchelane and they're going to drink some wine or some blood or something.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And like you said before, he's testing out his abilities, these different warrens and such.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of the main purpose of this section is just to see what it is that Talamandus can and can't do as far as like how he hops between different warrens.
How much power he can draw from that type of thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add to that. I definitely think it gets more interesting a little later on.
Sure.
But I'm ready to move on if you are.
Hell yeah. Let's keep going. We're doing good.
Yeah, we are. Haran sat on a bench inside the thrall. He stared at the dugout boat sitting inside the hole dug in the middle of the floor. The pain in his stomach was beginning to fade. He thought to himself that he finally understood the source of the illness. He was not a man who welcomed power. He was now a mitigator to a game where the players resented every challenge of their freedom. He thought to himself that no wonder his body recoils. He was alone in the thrall. The bridge burners were likely out gambling with the surviving members of the Gidrath. The Mass Council had retired for the night, and it seemed that Gruntle and Hatan were looking for a private place for round number 2. Idkovian and crew were back in the barracks near Jalarkin's tower, and in the morning would start to retrieve the Capan citizens from the tunnels. Peace had finally come to his stomach. He drew a breath and thought about all that encompassed his power. He could feel the cards within the deck inside of him. He thought of the many different types of players in the game, His thoughts traveled to that of Gruntle and Treech's recent ascension. Treech had always been padding in Fenner's wake. He wonders how much was planned by the Elder Gods, as Nightchill had implied. But it could also have been a haphazard chain of events that just ended up working out. He thought that if otherwise, though, they wouldn't stand a chance against the Elder Gods, and neither would the Crippled God. If it was planned, then that plan would have Treech losing his way, and ultimately leading up to Fenner's exit. Unless they all are playing out roles that are inevitable and only known by the Elder Gods. Unless they each and every one of them chooses what to do or not to do, which could have profound consequences, not just for their lives, but the lives and worlds in each and every realm. He recalled some writings who had asserted exactly the moral bind he was seeking, like that of Duiker, though long fallen out of favor, so he was going to be a fulcrum on which the game is played. He wonders, though, what would happen if he made a wrong choice. A scuffling sound broke Paran from his thoughts. Paran recognized the figure in the gloomy hole as Kafal. He addresses the Barghast, and the Barghast recognizes Paran as the Malazan captain who blesses. Paran is confused by this and says that this was Itkovian's job. Kafal said that Itkovian carries burdens, not blessings. Paran thought to himself that his role just kept asking more and more of him. Paran explains that he had just been sitting here thinking that these dugout canoes are holding a secret. Kafal more or less confirms this and offers for Paran to take a closer look. Paran grabbed a lantern and descended into the pit. Paran studied the battle scenes that were painted on the prow. Kafal said that this was not the secret he wanted to show Paran. Kafal tells the captain to look closer and points out that the dugout canoes appear to be made of one singular tree, but they are not. Kafal takes out his knife and separates two pieces near the prow where the joins were visible due to time. Kafal sheaths his knife and reaches into the empty space where he pulls out a sword. Paran says that there must be sorcery in it to have made it to last that long. Kafal tells him that this was incorrect as he handles the blade. He explains to Paran that his people have lost the ancient knowledge of crafting weapons, and as the ones his people make now are poorly made. He hands the blade to Paran to see for himself that the weapon seemed unbalanced, but it was indeed light as a feather. Kafal tells Paran that this particular blade has seen much battle, but has no nicks on the edge. Paran inquires that the rest of the craft has these weapons in them, to which Kafal concurs. Paran then asks who will use them. Kafal explains that they were for children to train and learn to sword fight. They were quiet for a time when Paran said that he had worked out another secret and asked if the Barghast meant to keep this as their home. Kafal tells him no, but does ask if he can relate something Humble Tower asked of the captain. Kafal relates that Humble Tower would request that Captain Paran bless their Barghast gods. Paran said that they didn't need to be blessed, and he wouldn't even know how to go about blessing them. Kafal asks why Paran hesitated. Paran thinks to himself that he's the hood damn fulcrum, but admits that it's because he's a cautious bastard. Kafal replies that he will tell his father and Paran will think about it. He tells Paran to be careful as the priests of the Mass Council know who he is, and they do not like rivals, as they haven't even accepted Karuli into their company. Paran asks who Karuli was. Kafal explains that Karuli was Krul's high priest, and to expect Karuli's ask for a blessing on behalf of his god. Paran told Kafal to never mind that he was going to take a walk, but rather he would find a hole to crawl into. Kafal laughed harshly instead of sympathetically, as Paran would have liked. Yeah, so I thought this section was really interesting. Just at the beginning here, just Paran kind of has his thoughts to himself, and I really like the line where he's like, well, I don't welcome power, but now I find myself to be a mitigator to a game where the players resent every challenge of their freedom. And it kind of sounds like the gods have just been doing whatever they please with barely any guidance on what is acceptable or not. And it kind of seems like Paran is the perfect person for this role, actually, right? Because he's not abusing that power.
Well, I mean, they're gods, right? Like, who's going to question them? Like, not many people.
Other gods, probably. But, I mean, what can you do if you're, like, equally matched, you know?
Right.
Yeah. His thoughts about the many different types of players in the game. And I also thought this was interesting as he's talking about the gods who, don't play fair, the gods that don't play fair, the gods that do play fair, the ones that hide, and the ones that kind of like stand in the forefront, ones that want in and ones that don't want anyone else in. And it's kind of a really big dilemma that he's found himself in, right? Like, who do you appease?
You're not going to make everybody happy.
I just, I've been in those situations where like there's so many people's emotions and thoughts to take into place. But then again, like if you're talking about gods, like you're not one. So why do you care about anything that they want,
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
But, another thing about his contemplation is he wonders how much was planned by the elder gods, as, Night Chill had implied. And he kind of goes into this like thought of like, okay, well, is this just like this weird haphazard chain of events that just kind of ended up working out? Or was there a design or some meticulous planning on the elder gods side here? And I like that kind of level of contemplation that he has. And Paran is thinking that it's either some weird coincidence or that it's planned like Night Chill. And I guess, what do you think? You think this has been orchestrated by the Elder Gods down to the very last detail? Or do you think there's a level of choice that are affecting actions? Do the Elder Gods know what Ganoz is going to pick? Or are they hoping he makes the right choice?
I don't know how you could orchestrate this whole thing down to the last detail because there's so many other moving parts than outside of Paran. Every fight he's been in, everything else, you have to know the details that he doesn't fall off his horse and break his neck and die, like all this stuff. Like I can't buy into that this was all planned.
Oh, for sure. I would agree that it's more choice than planned. But is it possible that it's both? Like
Maybe.
The whole Treach thing seems very coordinated. The Silverfox is clearly coordinated, right? Like we see her birth at the end of the first book.
I don't know how. I think that's a hard question. I don't know.
Sorry to throw you the doozies, but I mean that's just kind of like my thoughts is I honestly think that there's a little bit of both going on. And I don't know if Paran can necessarily wrap his head around.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, like I'm struggling with it, so.
Fair enough. This part where he goes about he wouldn't know how to go about blessing the Barghast gods. I mean, I can see that, right? Like you're new into this role. You're still just kind of getting over the fact that like this is what you're supposed to be doing, even though you don't like it. And the whole entire book, he's been kind of fighting it until now, essentially. If he does bless the Barghast gods, would that bring them back to the deck of dragons, to the hold of the beasts, right?
I don't know.
But this also ties into Deadhouse Gates. Remember when Haborik and Felazin and Culp were in that like underground city from the First Empire, and they're looking upon some type of decorative door or something like that. And there's a like carvings of the ancient decks of the dragon, and the beast, the hold of the beast was like missing or something like that. So that would kind of represent the Barghast gods not being around.
Yeah, there was something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think you're on the right track.
So it's just really cool. I find that like that's so awesome about this series is that like again, you don't have those answers in that moment in time, but like it slowly gets revealed to you by providing you content. And I mean, honestly, in all, it's kind of a test as to whether you're fucking paying attention,
I think you might do a little bit better than that than I do. Not that I'm not paying attention, but I think you just pick up on some of that stuff better.
Yeah, I just, I live for detail. I love detail. I guess my last thought for this particular section, it was at the very end here. We get some really good humor because if you think about it, they're in a hole, right? And at one point, and I didn't summarize it because it wasn't necessary to me, but Paran said that near the end of the conversation that he was going to go take a walk. But he told Kafal to never mind that, as he would rather, now with all this blessing stuff, would rather find a hole to crawl into. And Kafal laughs very harshly because they're already in a hole, instead of sympathetically like Paran would have wanted. So I
I
thought
didn't
was
really
just,
make that connection.
I just thought that was funny. Like they're in a hole already. So like if I was Kafal, I would laugh too. Which is
Like
I think is the reason.
Capustan's a shithole.
Right. So yeah, I thought that was interesting and funny.
I did not get it at first, but it makes sense now that you've talked it out for me because I was like, I don't really understand what's so funny. But
I'm glad.
you're right. I mean, the
yeah,
city's kind of a shithole right now. So
yeah. And they're literally in a hole full of dugout canoes and dead people, right?
true. Yeah. That was over my head. The blondness.
I could I'm glad that I could clarify for it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you think these swords have anything to do with anything? Because like I didn't. I just kind of feel like they were a thing. You know, I'm sure like the Barghast will use them, but I don't think that they serve any type of like clarifying purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. Was it, maybe just to summarize it, was it this section or was it another section where they talk? I thought they talked about like the Barghast going back to the sea.
No, I don't think that was in here. I don't remember that.
Maybe I'll have to like re-look it. I thought they talked about like how they would. I thought there was something that was talking about them going back to the ocean or something.
No, not that I can recall.
Never mind them.
All right.
But as far as the swords themselves, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know they talk about like their kids using them and stuff, but they can't train their kids because like they don't know how to use them, and so they're just gonna have to fucking figure it out.
Right. Or maybe like deconstruct it so that they could figure out how to remake it because it's an ancient knowledge they no longer possess.
Right.
Which, if they can, I mean, that would serve them well in battle, I would imagine. Which it sounds like they're going to be joining. So why the fuck not?
Right. Yeah. Might as well have some decent weapons to use instead of shit.
Right. But yeah, man, I'm ready to move on if you are.
Sure. Mancy was able to find an actual bottle of wine. He poured 2 glasses, then removed himself from the room. Bauchelin told Quickben he had his attention since he went through the trouble of getting past his defenses. Quickben said demonic summoning is the rarest and hardest part in the necromancer world. Bauchelin shrugged. Quickben continued saying the power it draws upon, while being Hood's own warren, is deeply tainted with chaos. Also, why does he think summoning demons is death aspected? Bauchelin replied, the absolute control over a life force. The threat of annihilation is inherently death aspected. He was also curious to hear more of what Quickben thought on the Warrens. Quickben told him they had been poisoned. Bauchelin said there were many flavors to chaotic power. What assails the Warrens has little to do with these elements of the Warren of Chaos he is involved with. Quickben asked if he was saying his access to the Warrens was unaffected. Bauchelin said that isn't what he said. It is an irritant, and it could get worse. He may find the need later down the road to retaliate against whoever did this. Corporal had voiced his concern since he deals more in Hood's Warren and has felt its effect more. Quickben said he could tell him who was responsible. Bauchelin immediately questioned why he would do this. Did he want an ally? Quickben said he offered the intel freely, and even if they did offer to help, he would decline it. Bauchelin asked if this power rivaled the gods in this case. Quickben said he didn't recall ever mentioning gods. Bauchelin said that was fair, but whoever this poisoner was a formidable being, if not a god, then an aspirant. Quickben smiled and said he doesn't rival any gods, but sometimes he beats them at their own games. Bauchelin said he was not easily entertained, but he was appreciating Quickben's company. He was a worthy distraction. He told Quickben, however, that Corporal Broach would like to kill him. Quickben said you can't please everyone. Bauchelin said, yeah, that's true. But Corporal Broach didn't like being confused, and that's what Quickben was doing. Quickben said he should stay on the mantle on that case, as he didn't do well with hecklers. Corporal Broach descended from the mantle, attempting to dissemble back into human form. Quickben used his sorcery and stopped him halfway through his transformation and sent him through a wall. Bauchelin asked if he wanted more wine. Quickben obliged and apologized for the mess. Bauchelin said he had never seen 6 or 7 warrens used at once. Quickben was an artist. He wondered if Corporal would recover. Quickben said he was a guest. It wouldn't look good if he killed a host. Bauchelin said this was true. However, Corporal did want to kill him. Quickben said it was no trouble at all. Bauchelin noticed, saying he didn't sense any poison within his wizardry. He had questions. Was it 6 or 7 warrens? Quickben answered 6. Bauschlein found it shocking he could use 6 warrens at once, and he must be used up. Quickben said it was clear to him his welcome was at an end. This was not the case according to Bauschlein. He said he only needed to tell him everything, and they could continue on with the pleasant conversation. Quickben said that would not be possible. However, he would tell them that it was the crippled god behind the poisoning. Bauschlein said he should have held back at least half of his power. Quickben looked at him and said he did.
Yay! All right. Well, I mean, we get kind of more clarity on, what exactly it is that they talked about, and I don't know. I guess it goes back to like what exactly are Quickben's motivations. Like, do you think he's looking for an ally in the necromancers? Because based on the end of the section, I don't think he did.
I don't know what his motivations. Is he not looking for an ally, but maybe he wants to try to get them to do the dirty work somehow?
Maybe. I mean, how do you do that? Because I mean, I don't think you summarized it, but Quickben blasts Bauschlein too.
Yeah, well, yeah, he gets him with his 6 warrens, and obviously Bauschlein's like impressed. He's like, holy shit, I've never seen anybody use 6 warrens at once. You must be fucking tired now. You should have only, used half your power. And Quickman's like, oh yeah, that was only half my power.
And then he shows him, because he hits both of them with some power.
Oh, did he get both of them?
Yeah, it's like really subtle, but he totally does.
Okay, I don't remember that, or I missed that, but that's all right.
Yeah, which makes your next scene a little bit more understandable. Yeah, here it is right here.
Are you highlighting something?
Yeah, at the very last sentence is the Divian, which I think is some type of like chair, and the man on it fared little better when struck by the power of a half-dozen bound warrens than had the wall and Corporal Broach moments earlier. So it implies that he isn't used up, right? And I guess, I don't know. So it kind of feels like he gives them both a boot.
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, I think a deviant or whatever that word is like a fancy word for a couch or something, chair. Yeah,
right. So he shoots Corporal Broach through a wall, and then he ends up like blasting Bauschlein as he sits in his chair, his fancy chair, and then the only one thing that he did was explain who was assaulting the Warrens. So I don't know, but I mean, like, I feel like Bauschlein is just so calm and cool and collected that I don't even know if like he would be mad. He doesn't even seem mad that he just got blasted with sorcery.
Which is kind of wild, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it's one of those things where like if I were the necromancers, if I would be wary of Quickben, or if I would like retaliate against him in some way, shape, or form.
I think you got to be kind of careful with him, because are you gonna mess with the guy who just used 6 warrens and that's only half of what he can do?
Right, exactly. Because Bauschlein was under the impression that was all he could do was 6. That's why Quickben said he did use half of his power.
Yeah.
So Bauschlein kind of has this like arrogance of underestimating Quickben a little bit, but Quickben's also kind of being, a cocky bastard.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, this was the first time where I really felt like the cockiness shine through was in this chapter. Like, I mean, I could kind of see it and understand it in other chapters, but this is where I was like, okay, like, yeah, he's being cocky here.
Yeah, showing off a little bit, but again, I mean, how much of it is really a test, right? Like, is he just doing to test his newfound shield?
I think so, yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll have to we'll have to see what happens, but I don't know. What else you got for me?
And just the only thought I had here is I don't know that it'll happen, but I just imagine Bauschlein and Corporal teaming up with Quickben to take on the Crippled God. Like, they could probably be a pretty formidable trio.
Oh, I for sure see that. Yeah, I'm curious as to where all this goes, I guess, is what it comes down to. And like I said, I feel like these sections with Quickben and the necromancers were ones that threw me off the most in this chapter. And that's just purely because, like, what exactly is he accomplishing? It doesn't seem like it is for anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't really know what his motivation is yet.
So I guess we'll just kind of have to read and find out, right? like where
Right.
this is going to go, if they will retaliate or will they team up, you know?
Yeah. I'm not sure, but that's all I got here. If you want to move on here.
All right. Mancy met up with Quick Ben in the smoky hallway near the front doors. Quick Ben informed him that his masters needed attention due to smoke inhalation. Mancy pushed past the mage, asking what was wrong with all of you. Quick Ben asked what he meant by that. Mancy turned and replied that it was obvious. When you swat a wasp, then you use your heel. Quick Ben asked if Mancy wanted Quick Ben to kill his masters. Mancy rants about them all being hood-damned idiots. He continues his rant on what he's told to do on the daily, and then ends up by saying that everyone thinks he likes his job, and then he trails off and leaves. With the old man roaring, Quick Ben made his leave. Telemandus was waiting for Quick out and told the mage that Mancy was right. Quick Ben told him to stow it. The undead guards were starting to reawaken, and Quick Ben thought that they had better move. Telemandus said that he had almost moved to the wall that Quick Ben had destroyed. Quick Ben said that this would have been unfortunate, but they should leave. Telemandus said that it was about time he heard some wisdom. So one of the first things that kind of jumped out at me in this really short section is that it kind of seems like Mancy doesn't want to be there, but it kind of sounds like he can never leave because no one ever kills the necromancers. So maybe that's what he was hoping for.
I could see that because, he does seem like irritated.
Right. Like he was hoping that they would be gone. Like they have. I think this kind of goes back to the Sinrinth tool type of conversation, right? Where Boschlin admits that he never lets his tools go. So I'm wondering if this is kind of Mancy's situation.
Oh, good catch. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's something more to Emancipar Reese than we're led to believe at this particular point in time, and maybe the novellas will shed some light on that.
Sure.
But yeah, that was literally one of the only things that I had. So I'm ready to move on if you are.
I've got a paragraph here for this section. Mancy looked down at Bauschlane as he opened his eyes. Mancy said they were in the garden. He had drugged both of them out there, put the fire out, and got all the windows open. Bauschlane said it was a job well done, but he was confused. Did they do something wrong? He was about to ask if they underestimated, but stopped short of finishing his sentence. Bauschlane said Mancy had earned a bonus and asked what he wanted. Mancy said it was fine, it was just a part of his job, and he would get on it and walk away. Bauschlane said he was a modest man and wondered what he had left for clothes. Given the recent events, he didn't think much. My only thought here on this, really short section was just, I'm assuming that they are saying they underestimated Quick Ben before Bauschlane quits talking.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, not much there, just pretty short and sweet. House is on fire.
Right.
Mancy drug him out, put the fire out, and clearing the smoke out of the house, or trying to.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's interesting so far. I really like this chapter. So,
I think from what I remember, the section with the canoes and the bar guest was my favorite part.
Oh,
I'm trying to think of what we have left. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what we have left to talk about, but I think that was my favorite part.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, no, it was a good part. I wish that I would have gone back to, that was one of the sections that was 10 pages long, and I managed to summarize it up in less than a page.
Well, damn. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay, section 14. Shrouded in shadow, Quick Ben made his way down the rubble-littered street. After some banter about the eeriness of the city, Quick Ben could see the dark mass of the thrall up ahead. As they entered the main avenue that led to the concourse, they came upon their first group of Barghast, sitting down around a small fire. Telemandus suggests to get through undetected, and that they'll have to go around if Quick Ben still has the desire to sneak around, even though they are the Sticksnare's kin. Quick Ben told him to be quiet, as this was another test of what they could accomplish together. Telemandus asked that they not use the Warren of Stone, or Deris again. Quick Ben said this wasn't a good idea, as they would be walking through layers of blood. He would use Cirque, the Path of Sky. Quick Ben unveiled the warren of Cirque, and as Quick's eyes adjusted, he could see the currents in the air. Telemandus said that the warren looked sickly and asked if Quick Ben would swim those currents. Quick Ben answered that they would and that he could get them started. However, keeping him afloat would be a problem. He had no reserves left, and it would need Telemandus to lend the mage his power. Telemandus had some reservations about this, as it could weaken his protection of Quick Ben. The mage responded that he needed to find that threshold, and what he could pull in an emergency. The stick snare asked how nasty of a confrontation with the Crippled God was Quick Ben anticipating. Quick Ben told him to relax, as he had no intention of challenging the Crippled God, and relays the story to the stick snare of the mage's first encounter with the Crippled God. The stick snare hissed with fury, and Quick Ben rose from the ground. They slipped into a current going down the street. They ran into a column of heat from one of the Barghast fires, running into issues with it. He drew on the stick snare's warren. He cursed inside his head as he realized that the warren was Hood's. He tells himself that a long-abandoned card within the house's deck, the Magi, has just found a new face, and it was painted on an acorn. He thinks to himself that Telemandus has made a big mistake, and the newcomer gods have stretched themselves thin. He gave the Barghast gods some advice, and that was to never give their servants over to another god, as the god will turn them into a weapon and fire it directly at their backs. Quick Ben drew on Hood's warren sharply. He thought to himself that Hood should come to him as they're going to have a talk. Hood's voice thundered inside of Quick's mind and called him a fool. Quick Ben threatens the god of death with some choice words. Death spoke inside his mind, saying that the House of Chains must be denied. Quick Ben questioned this and stated that it was the poison he was trying to get rid of, so burn could be cured and the warrens cleansed. Hood spoke and said that the master of the deck must deny the House of Chains, as it is finding adherents. Quick Ben questioned this as well, and Hood names off a list of gods and ascendants assuming roles within the house. The master of the deck must not be blind to these threats. Quick Ben scowls and tells Hood that Captain Paran is not always so easily persuaded. He tells the Lord of Death that the House of Chains may be his problem, as he is focused on the poison and what it's doing to burn. Hood told him he was being led astray. Quick Ben says that he guessed as much, but that doesn't matter, as he'll still find a way to unravel what is the Panian Seer. Hood replies and said that it would avail him nothing. Quick Ben said that it doesn't matter, as he'll call upon the Lord of Death again. Hood responded and asked why should he, as Quick hasn't been listening to a word he said. Quick cuts him off and explains that he has but the Barghast gods are young and inexperienced, and because of this, it usually means that they are the most dangerous. Since Hood has offered to help, he better do just that. Hood asked if Quick was threatening him. Quick tells Hood that now he's the one not listening, and Quick Ben is only warning him about the Barghast and also Treach. He has found a new mortal sword, and this mortal sword is wrapped in the pain of death, a soul that Hood now has. It would be stupid to wound them, as they won't forget who made those wounds. Quick could feel Hood seething with rage, but he remained silent. Quick Ben told him to think on all that, but in the meantime, Hood was going to help him over these Barghast into the plaza in front of the thrall. He also tells Hood that he can hover behind the eyes of Telemandus, but no closer. And when Quick needs the god of death, he will call. Hood told Quick that one day he would be his. Quick realized his grip on, or released his grip on the god's cloak, and Hood flinched back. Telemandus asked what had happened, as it appeared that he had disappeared there for a while. Quick Ben assured him that everything was fine and asked if the power felt true. The stick snare said that it was, and Quick Ben said that this was good to hear, and told Telemandus to guide them to the plaza. So I thought this was a very interesting section, as basically we get kind of like Hood pulled into the conversation here, right?
Yeah, I think that's where I felt, or one of the spots where I felt Quick Ben being like cocky. Because how many people can pull that off?
Not very many.
In just like a casual fashion. Like, it's not like he was showing up to take Quick Ben's soul like he did to Brucalion.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it's definitely not many. But, yeah, I think if this wasn't the moment that made me realize how cocky he's being, it was definitely one of them.
Yeah, and I mean, it accentuates what that cockiness and arrogance that he had with Bauchelain, right?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
I kind of nodded my head, but then I forget sometimes that this is a mostly audio medium, so I should probably verbally respond.
I don't even know if I saw your head nod.
It was very slight. It was just a little head bob.
Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. I guess here's the thing is like kind of what you were saying about, we had Hood earlier in the book kind of try to recruit Rucalian. And so we know that he's actively recruiting, right? But I think it seems to be, unless maybe you can recall something different, that he has struck a deal with the Barghast / Telemandus becoming his magi in the House of Death. I'm assuming that happened off screen, off page at one point in time. But I wonder if there will be an explanation for this sometime in the future.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe not.
I definitely feel like Hood is trying to align himself with the Elder Gods, but I don't feel like we really have enough information for his motivations there. A lot of these different types of factions seem to be aligning themselves against the Crippled God. Their motivations are kind of unclear at this point.
Yeah.
And then I thought it was really cool how Hood kind of like names off all of the, I guess, ascendants assuming house or like roles within the house of the Crippled God, or the House of Chains, I guess you could say. And one of a couple of them, which we've never heard of before, so I was just kind of like listing them out. And Poliel is the Mistress of Pestilence, is apparently taking on the role of consort of King of Chains. So maybe our thought about Calor becoming the king within the House of Chains is maybe not yet aspired. I don't know, because I don't exactly know what consort means, but I get the feeling of like a temporary position.
I think a consort would be like
a spouse of a reigning monarch.
Yeah.
So like the queen of the House of Chains?
Maybe. I guess I don't know. Like if the king died, I don't know if she's really the queen. It might just pass to somebody else, and who knows?
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe. I guess we'll just have to see how that unfolds. A herald was recruited. They didn't specifically say in the section, but we know from earlier that this is Gethel, or Gothos's brother, so to speak. An ancient warrior wants to be Reaver, and I wonder. I mean, Calor's not really a warrior, is he? He's more kind of a.
What if it is Tak?
Yeah, but Tak's not an ancient warrior.
Or Tool, sorry.
You think it's Tool?
I mean, he's pretty ancient, unless it's somebody we haven't met yet, which is totally possible.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I don't know if it would be Tool. So I don't know. I guess, a lot of these will have to kind of just read on and find out. And then the last was Maori now embraces the 3 cripple, which is cripple, leper, and fool, which take in its place what was spinner, mason, and soldier. So
I didn't really know what to make of all that.
I didn't really know either, but I'm not exactly sure what those particular roles are, but they're just kind of taking, I think it's just like a renaming, right?
Sure. We can go with that.
Kind of aligns with the theme of the House of Chains, right? Which is just that like faulty, cripple, leper, and fool. They're not exactly associated with positive things,
Right.
So yeah, I don't know if I really had a ton outside of that. I thought it was really cool kind of how Quick Ben was explaining the Warren of Cirque, and it just kind of made it seem, like he ascended into some like airwaves, and then for whatever reason he got caught up in the
updraft or something.
Like an updraft, and ran into trouble, and that's when he discovers that, or kind of affirms his suspicions that that Telemandus and the Barghast are kind of relying on some help from Hood, and Hood is maybe taking advantage of that a little bit, is kind of what it seems, because Quick Ben, warns him that, like, the Barghast gods are young and inexperienced. It's funny for him to say that, because they are not young. They just have been kind of forgotten, right? Because of the culture of the Barghast, right?
Yeah.
But outside of that, I really didn't have any other like thoughts. I thought it was it was meant to be transitional, with kind of Quick Ben showing his arrogance and pulling in Death to have a conversation with him. And yeah, it was very interesting, none the least.
All right. Section 15. Paran sat at the steps of the thrall. Before him lay the Barghast camps. He was tired, yet could not sleep. Inside, the shouldermen continued taking apart the ancient canoes, gathering weapons. Besides that, everything else seemed lifeless. The emptiness made Paran think this must be what his parents' home in Unta was like. Since they were dead, and Felison was probably tied up in a pit somewhere, while Tavor was likely in Lacine's palace. He figured the Empress was probably happy with her new adjunct, cold as she was. While Felison would be struggling to survive, she was probably in the care of a pimp or a pit thug. Yet he knew Tavor had a plan to rescue her. She may have even sent a guardian or two along the way, but Tavor would not be rescuing a child. Bran thought it would have been kinder if she just killed her. He fears someday Tavor will pay a high price. Gruntle appeared through the doors. Bran said he looked well rested. Gruntle responded saying he felt as if he was within an inch of his life. That was a mean woman. Paran remarked he has heard that before, but there always seemed to be a hint of pride whenever he had heard men speak like that. Gruntle said he was funny, and Paran invited him to sit. Gruntle said he didn't want to intrude on his solitude. Paran said it was no problem. He would like the company. Gruntle said Hitan was insatiable. Paran understood that he now wanted solitude, which he was preventing. Gruntle said as long as he didn't leave scratch marks down his back, he was good company. Paran said he wasn't that catty. Gruntle said if Trake didn't have a sense of humor, that was his problem. But then again, he chose him as his mortal sword. Paran thought he had chosen wisely. Gruntle said not if Trake expected vows. That, and he doesn't even like fighting or want to be a soldier. How was he supposed to serve the god of war? Paran thought he was a better choice than some war-crazy unibrow idiot. He knew Gruntle was reluctant to use his swords and all that they stood for. He thought that was a good thing. Gruntle said if there was any other way, if what had happened to Harlow and Stoney didn't happen, he would have been in the tunnels with the rest. Paran knew who Stoney was, but asked about Harlow. Gruntle said he was just another victim on the trail. Also, he had heard the Malazan army was just west of their location. Why did they want to join the war? Paran said it was temporary. They had run out of enemies. Gruntle appreciated the humor. Paran said for Whiskey Jack and Dujek, this was the sum of their lives. They wrote history. While they're soldiers, well, it was just kind of their profession. Gruntle asked what happened if their commanders were suicidal idiots. Paran said every soldier was a master second-guesser, but luckily the Malazan army had a pretty good track record of competent commanders. And had Paran followed a safer trajectory, he could probably be a fist by now. Not because he was competent or had experience, but because he had the right connections. However, the Empress had already acted on the rot within, but it was probably too late. Gruntle wanted to know why then. Why would she outlaw Onearm? Paran said he supposed it was politics, and Gruntle wasn't buying that answer. Paran said that it was probably true, but he can't confirm or deny anything. But there was still some bad blood between Lacine and Dujek. Gruntle told Paran he was too loose with his lips, and it might get him hung someday. Paran said he had more info. There was a new house trying to get into the Deck of Dragons. It belonged to the Crippled God. He felt the pressure to deny allowing it in, and he must be the only one with this responsibility. But he didn't really know what to do, even though denial was the clear choice, and there was plenty of sound reason for it. Gruntle asked what the problem was. Paran said there was one voice, crying out against all the other calls for denial, that he should bless and allow the Crippled God into the deck. Gruntle asked if he knew whose voice it was. Paran could only think it was his own. Gruntle said he didn't know much of the deck other than its base functions, but he was not a practitioner. Paran echoed this as well. Gruntle likened it to what Paran had said about him not wanting to be the mortal sword. Since he doesn't want the job, he may be best suited for it over someone who studied it as their life's work. Paran said he may be onto something, not that it made him feel any better. Paran told Gruntle his easygoing feelings on the subject made him cautious. He saw no risk in legitimizing the House of Chains. Gruntle said that was just it. Right now, he's outside the game, bound by no rules. Paran understood. If he allowed him in, he would be bound by the rules of the deck. Gruntle thought it sounded reasonable and said sometimes the gods could be thick-headed, which is probably why they needed mortals from time to time. Gruntle's final advice was to listen to the voice in his head. Paran said it was good advice. Gruntle said maybe, maybe not. He might end up roasting on a god's spit for it. Paran said he liked the humor. Gruntle said he was serious and caught Paran off guard, then quickly said it was a joke.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess I would be pretty confident that Paran is going to allow the Crippled God or the House of Chains into the deck because the next book is called the House of Chains.
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to deny it.
Yeah, I think you and I are thinking the same thing.
So we'll have to see. But yeah, I wonder, is it going to work the way he's thinking, or is it going to backfire and just not be or work the way he was hoping or thinking it was going to?
Well, I mean, it kind of goes back to the previous or one of our previous sections, right, where Paran kind of has this like thought about, is this by chance or is this ordained, right? Well, I think that we can agree that Silverfox was planned and designed. And I think that Paran becoming master of the deck was slightly manipulated as well. So what is stopping Paran? Or I guess here's my thing is like, and I could be wrong, but I don't recall Night Chill talking about not blessing the Crippled God's house, right? And it seems like everybody but the Elder Gods are saying, don't allow him in, right? There was Hood. And then wasn't there another god or another like Whiskey Jack and Dewjack and all of those guys are like, don't let him in. I guess I can't remember now, but I feel like the Elder Gods kind of want the House of Chains to become legitimate because they do have to play by the rules.
I didn't think Hood wanted him in.
Right. Yeah, Hood doesn't want him in.
Oh, but yeah, sorry, I'm thinking, is Hood not an Elder God?
No.
Or our Elder Gods are just like
Chill, Draconis, and Cruel so far.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll just have to see what happens. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I just wonder what's going to change. Like, how is it going to happen? And yeah, what are the consequences going to be?
I think that's the biggest point is I feel like for Paran, the consequences of allowing it are far less than not allowing it, as Gruntle points out, right?
Potentially.
Yeah. So I guess we'll just, I don't know. I mean, I can understand that Paran probably just feels so bombarded. Like there's this giant weight on his shoulder now, and he doesn't want it, but like he's coming to terms with it, but like he still doesn't want it. And it's like irritating, So
right.
I guess I can understand where Paran is coming from. Yeah. I guess I don't know where it's going to go.
One way to find out.
It's funny because like I think of these types of moments and I go back to events that happened within Gardens of the Moon, reading some of those events in Memories of Ice here and even Deadhouse Gates. I'm like, oh yeah, like I see how that happens, and I'm assuming that when we get, 2 or 3 books down the line from this book, we'll go back and we'll be like, remember when we were like, how is this going to turn out? Like everything's just going to kind of get answered at that point. Yeah, it's cool. But at the same time, when you're in those moments, you're like, I don't know what to make of this.
Right. Paran is thinking about Tavor and his plan. And, he might have even sent a guardian or 2 along the way. Just made me wonder, do you think there was someone else besides Bowden? And maybe they weren't really apparent in Deadhouse Gates, but yeah, I don't know. Do you think there's somebody else?
I mean, I think that there's definitely a possibility for it. I think that he's just kind of speculating at this point.
Yeah.
I think we only can conclude that one was there, and that was Bowden. Could there be two? Sure. Who those two or that other one would be, I don't know.
Right. Paran thinking that someday he fears that Tavor is going to have to pay a high price for what he did to Fellison. I think that just kind of lends itself to my theory about, Fellison and Tavor and Paran. I guess we got probably a ways to go to find any payoff on that, but I feel like it's just kind of one of those foreshadowing things that I'm just using for my theory, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as soon as I read this in this section, I'm like, my thought immediately went to your theory. So I definitely think so. What exactly that price will be, who knows?
All right. Well, I think the price is going to be her life ultimately.
Yeah. But I mean, as we've seen, apparently there are things worse than death in here. Who knows?
I guess there is that catch.
Yeah.
Paran saying he's not that catty. I read that. I was like, oh man, like that's like just my type of humor. So
Oh, I mean, that's totally a dad joke for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, that was good. It caused me to chuckle too. So
Yeah.
I still think my favorite piece of humor was the whole bit between Kafal and Paran. But yeah.
Oh, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Those were the points that I had for the section. We had already talked about my last one here, kind of made that our first talking point, but that's fine. I didn't have anything else here unless you did.
The only thing that I could think of is, do you get the sense that there's a growing camaraderie between Gruntle and Paran? Like, they seem to be hitting it off really well.
Yeah. It seems like there's maybe some respect growing there between them.
And they almost kind of seem like to have similar circumstances, right? Where they're both forced into a role that they don't really want to be in. So I think that there's some commonality there. And
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think I see these guys having like a pretty good relationship throughout the series.
Let's see how far it goes.
Yeah. But outside of that, like, very quick point, that's all I really had as far as thoughts. So
all right. Well, that's this is 16 will be your second to last one here, right?
yep.
All right.
Quick Ben arrived at the plaza. He spotted Paran and Gruntle, the Treach's mortal sword. He told Telemandus that these were just the two he was looking for. Telemandus said that these two men were powerful. Quick Ben told the stick snare to relax. He wasn't expecting any type of confrontation. Telemandus said that he'd make himself scarce anyway. Quick Ben approached the two, and Paran said that the mage was a sight for sore eyes and was glad that the mage was feeling better. Paran introduces Gruntle to Quick Ben and vice versa. Gruntle smells a sense of death on the mage, and he doesn't like it. Being that a bridge burner had saved Stony, however, Gruntle said that he would cool his jets. Paran says some humorous things, and Quick Ben was glad to hear the banter from the captain. Paran explains that if Quick was looking for the bridge burners, they were in the Gidrath barracks. Quick Ben explains that he's not here for that, but rather he brings word from Whiskey Jack. Whiskey Jack has commanded another parley with all the commanders, including Gruntle here, and Humble Tar, and any others that should be there. Quick asks if there is any report that Paran needs to convey to Whiskey Jack. Paran said that he would relate it to Whiskey Jack when they were face to face. Quick Ben said okay and asked Paran if he could speak to him in private. Gruntle started to rise and Paran stopped him. Paran guessed what the mage was going to ask, and Paran explained that he doesn't yet know what he's going to do about the House of Chains, and he doesn't want to be pressured. Quick said that he wasn't there to pressure him, as he just had his own interaction with the god. And when a god asks one thing, Quick Ben naturally is inclined to just do the opposite. Gruntle found this humorous and commented on how he was in good company with these two. Quick Ben told him that he had one more thing, and it was just an observation, but he thinks that Paran got sick not because he resisted the power, but that he was resisting himself. He advises that whatever the captain's instincts were, to follow them. Paran asked if this came from the mage himself or Whiskey Jack. Quick Ben said that if Whiskey Jack were here, he'd say no different. After a moment, Paran admits that he's been on the verge of that exact same thinking, which of course he had help from Gruntle with. Gruntle laughed and said to let the gods squeal, and that the three of them were going to make some gods very unhappy. Quick Ben thought to himself about what he promised Hood and apologized inside his mind that he didn't try harder, but it seemed that Paran had already made up his mind. He told Hood another thing, and that was just to accept that the House of Chains would become part of the game. Hood has ample time to prepare for it. So I think kind of going back to your point, like this is probably also a path to realizing that the House of Chains is going to become legitimate.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't have a lot of comments here because like I felt like it was just very like reporty, reintroducing Paran and Quick Ben to the relationship that they have and where they last left off, so to speak, kind of just touching base from the character's perspective, so to speak, and introducing Gruntle to Quick Ben. I do also enjoy kind of, again, going back to like the camaraderie. I definitely see these three working together to cause some havoc.
Just being a little trio.
Yep. But yeah, I guess outside of that, I mean, it was a pretty short section, just kind of more or less reaffirming what we all were already speculating on. So
Fair. Well, want me to take my last section here?
yeah, take her away, man.
All right. Those who survived the siege in the hidden tunnels came back to the surface of the city they once called home. Itkovian sat on his horse. A recognizable and reassuring familiarity was his job. In the morning, the mass council would walk through the city with the same goal, letting the citizens know someone was in charge. Itkovian sought to minimize the shock that those that emerged felt, so he and his 319 remaining gray swords were placed at every tunnel mouth and wherever people milled about. Itkovian thought to himself that they were the defenders, and they still stood. Though the shock would be large in the morning, he and his gray swords made themselves present for those who survived. They were the standard. Itkovian thought that once this task was done, so was his contract. Law and order should be left to the Gidrath from the thrall, while the gray swords would leave the city, most likely never to return again. One question dominated Itkovian's mind. He had started with over 7,000 defenders at the beginning of the siege. The Grey Swords might never recover from such devastating losses. That would be manageable, though, as what had happened to Fenner was another story altogether. They would be no different than any other common mercenaries. Coin was not a strong enough bond. Few in that case would stand and fight when fleeing was an available option. Recruiting to strength had been a problem, as they needed dedicated individuals. He needed fanatics, but he also needed those potential recruits to have nothing to tie them down, and that wasn't an unlikely combination. Plus, if he did find them, what god would they swear to? Gruntle already had his army sworn to Trake. He recalled what Hatan had called him, a wolf. There was another rider in the crowd. Itkovian signaled her over and told her to find the captain. They had a task. He watched her ride off. He knew the Grey Swords must survive. This was more important than even his own wishes and wants. Itkovian thought it must be this way. He could think of none other. A reeve must be made, even in this. He is not done.
Interesting. So I think this section just kind of alludes to the last section here, but so I did the math, and unless my math sucks, which it usually does, if you take 7,000 divided by 319, you get 21 point something percent, which means that he lost 79% of his soldiers in this siege. That's a lot, man. I mean, he lost that much, and on top of that, he lost his god. So, I mean, it's funny how Itkovian kind of gets the sense of feeling a little lost here, but then kind of seems like he quickly realizes what he must do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough. Like, I really do not like this idea of taking on the Tenniscourie.
Why don't you like it?
I don't know that I would trust them if it were me.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. It just all depends upon how much the Tenniscourie are really adhering to the Panions' beliefs. I mean, they're literally at like the shit end of the stick, and I don't think that it would be that terribly hard to convince them, hey, you don't need to eat people anymore. Like, here's some food, man. I mean, if he can supply 7,000 Grey Swords with food, granted, he can supply at least that much of Tenniscourie.
Okay, so what are you going to do with the other 193,000 of them?
You slowly transition them from eating each other to eating regular food. I don't know. I don't know. You take on an extra 4,000. So now you have 1,100 total, but 4,000 are on a diet. I don't
I don't know, man. The math is not mathing for me on this. It does not seem to be, again, like I get this is a fantasy book, but it just does not seem like a plausible option to me.
Yeah, I definitely can see your hesitation there, but I don't know. Part of me wants it to work. I mean, like, think about it. Like, Tenniscowry lost what, 100,000 in this
Ish,
week?
yeah, somewhere in
Something
that
like that
number.
is what we
Yeah.
kind of deduced. So, like, if Itkovian is, able to recruit 79% of the Tenniscowry to kind of make up for the 79% of Greysword's lost. Granted, that's a bigger number as far as Tenniscowry recruited, but I mean, if he can convert them to, I guess, this new thing that he's going to chase, which we'll find out in the next section here, I think it's possible. I think it's definitely possible.
It's still just a really hard sell for me when these people are already crazed lunatics for the Panion Seer. How do you get them to not be that? But then you can be like, you know what? You can be a psychopath for this new god, though. Like, I just feel like these people have about 13 brain cells between all 200,000 of them. I feel like there's like, to me, like when I read them, like it's just a mindless horde to me. Like that's all like they are. And it sounds shitty, I guess, but there's no way in hell I would trust that. Not once, not even a little bit. I don't know. I guess maybe I've got a black heart. Kill them all. Be done with them and move on.
Maybe you do have a black heart for them, but at the end of the day, it's totally in the side that is not the crippled god. It's the advantage to take away or hurt the Panion Seer in a way that doesn't involve slaughtering the Tenniscowry, which is kind of the main issue at the beginning of the chapter, right? Between Brood, Whiskey Jack, Dujek, Rake. Rake, granted, is a little indifferent to the situation, but it is a solution to that problem that they haven't thought of and are completely unaware of at this point. I mean, we, the reader, have some speculations about it. It's totally a solution to that problem. And is it liberation? Maybe not really, but like they go from being their enemy to a potential ally.
The trust thing is just I don't know where you trust these people. How do you believe that you can trust them?
I mean, you're not wrong. I think that you're just looking at it a little too black and white. And that could there be pockets of resistance to it? Sure. As a whole, the majority may go along with what Itkovian's got cooked up here.
Maybe. Like I understand and I fully believe that like generally people want, like better things, to be in better positions. Like, yeah, people don't want to live in squalor and eat other people. But I also don't really think that these Tenniscowry really know any better. Like we've got Annister and the generals or whatever commanders he's got. Like those are probably the ones, the intelligence of the group. And if you take those away, then I just, like you said earlier, they're just like zombies. And I don't know that you could train them. I don't know that you could trust them. I think they just kind of are what they are.
Sure. I think it just kind of really depends upon how new to the Tenniscowry faction they are, right? Like, yes, we kind of get the impression that they're just like mindless, dumb animals, so to speak. But you have to remember that after the Panions invaded a city, they pretty much like you were forced to convert or die, right? So it's not like a lot of these people don't remember what that life was like. They're only doing it because it was the better option.
Right. And I wonder like how much humanity did these people lose? Like, are they just fully committed to being like feral now, or can they redeem themselves? But I don't know. I don't trust that they can.
Fair enough. I mean, I definitely have my doubts, but I'm going to stick to the positivity side of this.
I think that is like, I think you're going to be right. And I think that's what will happen. And at least right now, since I don't know how it's going to happen, I don't like it.
Fair.
But maybe once we get to that point and I understand what happens and how it happens, I'll feel differently. But until that point, I've definitely got my reservations.
All right. Fair enough. Well, given that impromptu conversation about the Tenascari, should we move on to our last section here?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Captain Narol had found a horse for herself. She said nothing as her and a recruit reined in beside the shield anvil. Itkovian told them to follow him. They rode through the city and out through the north gate of Capustan. They were headed for the Barghast camps to the north of the city. He drew rein in front of the Barghast elders and dismounted from his horse. No one spoke for a long moment until one of the Barghast elders cackled and told the three gray swords to follow her. They were led to a large circular tent at the far end of the camp. Itkovian and the captain and recruit followed the Barghast elder inside. The spokeswoman said it was rare for a man that comes to this place. Itkovian said that he was honored. Another woman in the tent said to look at him, Itkovian. He has no fear. A third said that his soul is nothing but ashes. The first said that with what he now seeks, he would promise a firestorm to a frozen forest. Chagtha and Farand, the lovers lost to each other for eternity. We have all heard their mournful cries, have they not? They come closer, but not from the north. But now this man. She trailed off and Itkovian gestures to the recruit and says that she would be the mortal sword. The old woman growled no, as the mortal sword has already been found. The Barghast elder tells Itkovian to look at the recruit's hands. They are too soft, so she shall be the destriant. Itkovian asked if she was sure. The old Barghast woman ignored his question and focused on the captain. The old woman said that the captain would be what Itkovian once was. She would carry the burden. She shall be the shield anvil. Narol looked confused. Itkovian told her to do it for the Grey Swords. Tog, Lord of Winter, God of War, long forgotten, recalled among the Barghast as the wolf spirit Togchatha and his lost mate Fandaray. A reeve must be proclaimed kneeling before the wolf god and goddess. He said to the recruit that she would be the destriant and then back to Narol as she would be the shield anvil. Sanctioned here amongst Barghast elders, Narol said that Itkovian was the shield anvil. He spoke saying that he was the shield anvil of Fenner, but Fenner is no longer. Itkovian tells the captain that they will require fanatics and that she must search to find these people and create a culture. People with nothing left of their lives. Itkovian told them that the Grey Swords would march south with 2 foreign armies, south to see the end of the Panian Domain. She will seek and find those fanatics among the Tenascari. He watched the bleakness wash over her. He thought to himself that this was his burden, a burden he couldn't take back. He didn't give her a choice. Again, kind of tying into our previous conversation about the Tenascari, I think that Captain Narol, who is now the shield anvil for Tog and Fenner, right? Or Fandaray, is basically been tasked without a choice to recruit them. So again, going back to our previous conversations, we'll just have to see what happens of that.
Right. I really spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to say that one name.
Oh, yeah.
And I finally gave up and I just decided, I don't know if this is right or not, but I settled on myself, Togsitha.
Oh.
I mean, that C really throws me off in the middle of it. So I was just like, I don't.
Togsitha, I think that works. But community, do your thing. Let us know how we're butchering that.
It's a fantasy name. I mean,
right. The one thing that I kind of pulled out of this I don't know. I had a hard time understanding what was going on at the beginning. And like I said, I didn't really get a chance to like go back and read it from start to end after summarizing it, which I typically like to do. But it being such a 60, a long chapter, it was tough to find time to do that. But the one thing that I as the Barghast elder woman is kind of explaining that these two were lovers that lost each other for eternity, and we have all heard their mournful cries. I kind of wonder if these were the two that got stuck in the mud. And it says their mournful cries, like losing their child, Balljag, right? Like we know that Balljag is like the small pup at the beginning, circling the like pit of their parents. You know what I mean? You remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's right or wrong. I'm sure it's probably fucking wrong, but I just couldn't help but like be recalled to that.
Interesting. Yeah, I did not get that recall factor.
And I wonder also kind of, you know, how involved is Talk with this?
I don't know.
Is he like one of them ascending potentially? I don't know, because
I'm
he's
not sure.
wolf visions, and I think that that's just Balljag has a link to him somehow, but I can't quite wrap my head around that either, because there's just not enough information.
Yeah. Something I've been thinking about here, and I don't think we've talked about it before, but you know, we've got this Reeve or Revy, however you want to say it. You know, now they're going to like create a new one. But when Wrath Fenner invoked whatever rule of the Reeve, like how many other rules are they? And I wonder what they are.
Yeah, that's an interesting statement. I don't know. I'm sure that there's, many of them. I mean, they seem like a organized religion, so to speak, right? So who knows? I mean, but if your god is absent or not there, like, do those rules apply?
Yeah, I don't know. But I think maybe that would be a question we could ask Mr. Erickson. And maybe he'd just tell us to, you know, keep reading. It'll be answered. I don't know. But
yeah, fair enough. I'm excited to fucking read on. I'm very excited to see what happens. 7 chapters away from finishing up this book. So
yeah, we're like 3/4 of the way through ish.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. So yeah, it'll be good. I know it'll be nice to have a little bit of a shorter chapter here, because I think, yeah, this next one's like 20 some pages. And then the last chapter of the subbook is another like 40, 50 plus pages. I think it'll be another longer one.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I mean, I get, if I had to predict anything, I would imagine that we kind of get the Malazan army on the move. I don't know. It would be cool to get back to Talk and see what's going on with him. It would be cool to go back and kind of get Lady Envy's perspective, but I don't think we've really had it since Talk left them.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Ago. So it'd be kind of cool to get their perspective. Obviously, this Itkovian stuff with, you know, Tog and Fanderay, where that's going to go, you know, even with the Tenascowry, the Panion Seer himself, the stuff with Quick Ben and the Warren, and how is he going to be the only one that's shielded? Is he going to find another way to shield other people?
Yeah, I don't know. These last couple chapters, I've really had a hard time struggling trying to predict what I think might happen. So I don't really have anything to add. So I will take yours.
All right. Well, I mean, hey, we did it in about an hour. So
yeah, another 2-parter for us to do.
Yeah, a little.
But
the audience,
yeah.
That.
Not the whole episode, but yeah, something I was thinking about. Maybe just adding in, if you guys have made it this far to the end of the episode, help us out. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe to us there. Help us out. We're trying to build that up. I know we generally our videos aren't up there, but maybe that will change. If you don't do that, then I'm going to send some Segula after you. So you'll have to challenge them to survive.
Yeah.
Save me the trouble. Help us out. And another thing we don't really talk about, you know, we've got our Patreon. We only have 2 tiers. It's $3 or $5. I mean, it's not much. Does help us out. And I don't think either one of us, you know, want to ask for a ton of somebody's money. So a couple bucks a month, again, hopefully, you know, if you're able, we'd love to have you on. We do have a lot of fun with our group of patrons that we have. But I know that we also kind of want to let our body of work that we do kind of be the, you know, the swaying factor, the determining factor. We don't want to, it's hard to like beg people to do that, and maybe not even beg, but even like just ask and talk about it. It's not always the most comfortable thing to do, but you know, something that that is out there as an option if you're able and inclined.
Right. Well, and I know that our episodes are very long fashioned, and I know that that can be a deterrent for some, maybe most. From a first time reader's perspective, one, we really want to, I guess, if you're a rereader, make you relive what it was like the first time that you read the series, as well as just do it justice. Because, like, I feel a lot of the things that I hear about, even 10 Very Big Books is that they didn't really go that in depth. And while I'm sure that there are other podcasts out there that do that, like, we just wanted to make sure that we covered everything that we thought was important from a first time reader's perspective. And just, I know they're long winded, and I appreciate y'all's tenacity to be able to stick with us, but I just can't imagine doing it any other way. I don't know if I could just short sight it for the sake of time. Like, I can't put it in myself to do it that way.
No, I agree. Yeah, it would. I don't think the format's really going to change. This is just our way that we're going to do it. So I agree with you. I don't think, like, if we committed to doing like every episode in an hour, like, it just would not work.
It wouldn't be
right.
as, it wouldn't rushed.
It would feel rushed. It wouldn't be as good. We'd have to skip over things. And I'm sure a lot of the stuff that we talk about is probably nothing anyways, but like at the time, like, we're not feeling that way. So
right.
It's, it's worthwhile.
Even though we're familiar with the world and, like, we've made it, 30% in, well, not even, but once this book is done, 30% in. And yes, we're familiar, but, like, we're still first time readers. Like, we don't know everything, and we don't want to know everything. Like, this is the joy of being first time readers. We're just simply podcasting our experience. And yeah, they're a little long winded, but I can't imagine any other way of doing it. Like, we want to be, like, precise.
I think we just have fun talking about this stuff too. And hopefully it comes across that way, because even, we've done, I don't know, we're over 100 episodes now, and not all of them have been Malazan, but I still have fun talking to you every time we do this. So
yeah, I do too. I can't imagine not doing it. I mean, I know it's a lot of work, and scheduling it can be sometimes a pain in the butt, and summarizing can be a pain in the butt too. But, like,
yeah. And I'm sure editing's a nightmare. You do all that editing, it's like, I don't want to do that.
Right. But I mean, like, that's the point of, like, putting all of our summaries and sharing them with our Patreons, is that, like, this is another way of kind of reliving the story. Or even if you're following along for the first time, like, you can use those documents that we spend time on summarizing, maybe a little too in-depthly at times, but to follow along and get a sense of the story so far.
Definitely.
I mean, we're kind of like the Spark Notes of Malazan.
Maybe not always good Spark Notes, but
right, because we don't know what shit means. But I mean, we're literally summarizing it. So
I'd be curious to see, like, once we get done with this, how many, like, words we put into this.
Yeah, I mean, we
once
can
it's all said and
add it
done.
up. Yeah.
We'll have to remember to do that maybe, in 5 years or whatever it is. But
it's all good. But I mean, like, also we're doing the entire Malazan series. Like, I'm sure that we'll get to the Carcanza stuff, and we'll get to the Path of Ascendancy, and the novellas, the novels of the Malazan Empire. It's going to be a little out of order as, like, they release books, but I mean, it'll exist for whoever to follow through.
True.
Strategy guides aren't rushing things.
Good comparison.
Yeah.
That was my little soapbox to get on there, I guess. So
yeah, I fell into that trap too. It's all good.
It's all right.
But I'm going to go grab some dinner.
Me too. Kelly brought home some Culvers, so I got some cheese curds waiting. I got to eat. So
fuck yeah.
All right, man. I don't know if I'll get a chance to start reading this tonight, but I think we're going to watch House of the Dragon again, because Kelly fell asleep watching it last night. So, oh, darn, I got to watch it again. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I'll have to let Danny know so that we can watch it too.
Yeah, if you do, let me know what you think.
All right, will do, man.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye, dude.
See ya.
CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest.